Okay, we'll go ahead and get started if we're ready here. So, hello everyone, welcome. My name is Nick Kremp. I'm the Leominster Conservation Agent. Welcome to the Leominster Conservation Commission meeting. It is Tuesday, July 11th, 2023 at 6:01 p.m. I'm just going to remind everyone, if you have any cell phones or electronic devices on you, just please put them on silent so we don't get any interruptions. And I will go ahead with a roll call of commissioners present. Jim Chambers.
Here.
Stephanie Quinlan.
Here.
Mike Seeking.
Here.
Bob Seacard.
Yep.
Richard Gullick.
Here.
And Chuck Raymond.
Here.
Okay, so we got 6 commissioners present. That's a quorum, so we're good to go. And with that, I will leave it off with our chair, Chuck Raymond.
Thank you, Nick. Did you bring in a iced coffee for the rest of us?
No, just me. We can share.
It's kind of love we get. First of all, this is great. I love seeing an engaged community. So welcome to everybody. May not go your way, but that remains to be seen. Anyway, okay. We always, at the beginning of the agenda, we like to keep an open spot for public comments. So if you're not here for a specific agenda item, if you have any other comments about conservation issues, does anybody have anything they'd like to raise? If it's about the agenda, we'll get to that eventually. So, no? Okay, good. Moving on then. All right, new hearings. The next 2 are about the same address, but we've got 2 DEP file numbers. So we're gonna have 2 separate
hearings.
Okay,
Yeah.
all right.
I'll be right back.
Okay, I can go ahead and read this in, right?
Yep.
Okay.
I'll be right back.
First one, pursuant to Mass General Law, Chapter 131, Section 40, the Massachusetts Wetlands Protection Act, the Leominster Conservation Commission will hold a public hearing on a notice of intent for the construction of a single-family house and associated site work in a wetland buffer zone. Address 43 Stagecoach Road, Lot 1, map and parcel 325-52, DEP file number 199-1177. Sir, I assume you're here to present for us?
Do you prefer an easel somewhere else or set it up back?
Why don't you put it up there so the folks in the audience can see it? Yeah, that'd be great. The camera might have to zoom in a little bit. Whenever you're ready, you can see it yourself.
Yeah,
please.
thank you.
Sit it.
You want me to just move down? No, that's okay. So,
Can't
my
have no
name's
water though.
Brian Marchetti with McCarty Engineering,
Mhm.
civil engineer for the applicant.
Can you say that again?
Yep, Brian Marchetti with McCarty Engineering.
There for Nick.
Yes, so we have check for Nick, these are the green cards, white cards.
Thank you so much.
So, 43 Stagecoach was a 5-acre parcel or so that was subdivided into 3 lots.
Can I ask you a quick question before you get going? So,
Yes.
how are we gonna be differentiating between lots 1 and 2 on this? Are you
So-
gonna take care of that? Or?
Yeah, so lot 1 is this first lot.
Okay,
So I have a separate plan for both.
just wanna make sure
lot
folks in
one
the audience
and lot
knew what we're doing. Okay, go ahead.
So lot 1 is this lot, it's a 1.6 acre lot. The house is already under construction. Initially the work being conducted was out of the buffer zone. When the cellar hole was excavated, the contractor on the site pushed the material around back within the buffer. So that's when Nick came to the applicant and said
So
that-
it's not the house itself, it was
it's
stuff
just
being
the fill in
pushed
the
up.
backyard being pushed out. We had to come before the commission to permit this now.
Mhm.
So that's when I was contacted. We had a surveyor, we hired a surveyor, we had a wetland consultant. They went out, flagged the wetlands, surveyed the property, and the house here, as you see, is as built, and we created it out how we want the backyard. So the impacts here, as I said, it's solely grading within the buffer zone. This line here is the 100-foot buffer. Bordering vegetated wetland is back here. So the limit of what's been pushed back now, we're not going any further beyond what's already been graded in the yard. The closest point here at the lot line is about 35 feet to the wetland line. So the total slope back here is 35 feet.
So,
away.
I'm sorry, so the limit to what from the wetland?
The erosion control line
Oh, the
is
erosion
just
control,
on the
okay.
outside of where the
So
material
in
is
this
graded.
case, that's not your limit of work, that's just the erosion control line.
That is the limit of work.
It
It
is
was
limit
set
of
at the total slope, at the limit of work.
Total, okay, got it, I see what you mean,
So
okay.
this line here was set at the total slope at the limit of work.
Got it.
So for this lot, we're about 35 feet away from
Okay.
the buffer zone. So all the work that's gonna be conducted now, the house is being built. The grading here will take place kind of at the completion of the house after that's done. They'll just fine grade the lot, spread the loam and seed it. And basically the slope, I believe, is gonna be left in a vegetated state to overgrow, but all the flat areas here will be a lawn area. So that is the extent of what's happening on lot 1. It's all just grading within the buffer zone. So as Nick said, DEP has issued a file number.
Yeah,
For the project.
I get that, yeah.
So really, with, that's the extent of the scope. If you guys have any questions.
Just very quickly, so, show me the lawn area again,
So
the proposed lawn area.
basically, the proposed lawn area is gonna be up here. So you'll be,
Okay.
let's say if that's 30, you're gonna be
So that was
60 feet away
okay.
from the wetland line.
Okay,
Yeah, it's right where this proposed contour here is. This is all flat
okay.
area.
And the limited work at the lower slope will be, is that just a siltation barrier, is it just straw wattle?
It's a straw wattle and silt fence.
So it's both,
Yes,
okay.
it's both,
Okay, so suspenders and belts, basically.
yes.
Okay.
And Nick had been to the site a couple of times over the last couple of months to inspect it.
Yeah.
And we did a site walk this morning with the commission.
Okay. I don't have any questions. Anybody in the commission have any questions?
That's yard all the way from the house to the 35 feet from the buffer, is that correct?
So right now, 35 feet, where we were standing on top of the slope this morning is about 50 plus feet away. That's where the lawn area is gonna be,
50 feet away from the
from the wetland.
wetland.
Yeah, where it starts grading down here to 3-to-1 slope, where the fill and the rocks that were out there, that's all gonna, I believe, just become vegetated and let it, considering the letting
But
go.
all the way from that point up to the house is gonna be
Will be
grass.
lawn, yes.
Thank you.
Are you gonna let it naturally seed in, or?
We'll probably use a slope mix, like a vegetated slope mix for that,
Okay.
and then let it grow. It's basically like a meadow mix,
Okay.
so it's got thicker root systems and more thick cover than just grass.
Anybody else in the commission?
No septic, no wells on the property other than the irrigation well we saw today, right?
It's
City water.
city water and sewer.
Okay, good point.
When you were clearing out space for the basement, how far back did that fill material get pushed? Because in the photos, in the wetland delineation, it looks like it's all the way up to that silt fence.
It is up to the silt fence, but that silt fence line is 35 feet on this lot.
Okay. Well, you know the drill though, how did that happen?
It was before I was involved. It was a contractor excavated the hole and got his machine and was pushing dirt around. He didn't realize where the wetlands were.
We've seen that
It's pretty typical.
several times, so.
I'd like to commend Nick for following up on things like this and getting them involved into the process, which it was not until you got involved.
And to just make a note on, to make a note on the proximity to the silt fence and all that, it did look like it got a lot closer, but I believe that was on lot 2.
It is.
Or is he saying with lot 1 specifically, that 35 feet, I would say is accurate.
And did that require any tree removal?
There was a lot of tree removal that occurred on the property.
Do we have any photos of the property before any alterations? Or,
I don't have that.
Yeah, they, if they had come before us beforehand, they said, we wanna take out all these trees,
What's that?
we might have had something to say about that.
Nope.
Anybody have any thoughts on the tree removal?
Well, that house is outside our jurisdiction.
No,
It's only, it's that
No.
part where it's
The
playing along.
tree removal
Correct, yeah.
would have been,
In that part, yes.
yes.
yeah, anybody have any thoughts or comments on that?
No,
Okay.
no, it doesn't bother me too much. It'll stay vegetated in some form. I don't
Yeah.
believe it's going to wash dirt down into the wetland.
Yeah, and there's no cold water stream that we have to worry about shade for.
Right.
No, this wetland has there's a drainage easement with the city of Leominster. So there are catch basins in the road and culvert discharges on the property.
Okay,
So there's no intermittent stream. It's pretty much created by a lot of town drainage
okay.
and most spots up.
Okay. Bob?
I just wanna note that I did walk the site this morning with the group,
Mhm.
and, prior to what they had done, and they installed the silt fence after correctly, it looks like that held real well, that there was no silt really escaping any of the further into the wetlands. I walked into the wetlands, and that looked fine. Yeah, we don't plan on taking any more vegetation from the site now?
No,
Okay,
not at all, no.
that's all I have.
And it's relatively flat.
Yeah,
And it has been, you know, I'll speak to your comment about the silt fences working. It's been, as you know, significantly rainy
We're kind of moist.
spring and summer, and it's held up.
And just to give a general idea of what it was like out there, the first time I saw the site, it was last year. I believe the original house that was on site was still standing. I don't know if you remember,
I think
Eric,
so.
when I met. So, but from what I recall, like was said, this was all one lot at one point with that one house. So it was like semi-yard space. It wasn't a forested area over there, was it? Or am I?
Just a whole lot of trash.
Yeah, there was a couple of trees that were removed, but it wasn't like a forested lot that was cleared, is my point. So
Okay.
there were definitely some trees removed, but it wasn't forested.
Wasn't like black flower land,
No,
no road, whatever.
no.
Okay,
was I correct, some cars and a lot of trash came out of there, but some cars came out of there as well?
Yeah, we took probably 10, 40-yard dumpsters worth of stuff out of there. You couldn't see it from the road, but
There are some.
as you went deeper, you found it.
Yeah, the guy, I mean, this is getting a little out of scope, but
hold on. Okay.
the,
Hold on.
the,
Yeah.
the person living there before, I think they were a private investigator or something, they had a bunch of, they had a lot of stuff going on.
Crime evidence back
They'd
then?
be driving like different cars and stuff, and yeah, so, it was a unique situation over there. There was a lot of,
I think hoarder would be a better term.
yeah, I don't remember the vehicles, that they might have been removed by the time I saw it, but there was a lot of debris and just kind of just refuse around.
Just for fun, I'm going with crime scene investigator.
CSI.
All right, anybody else in the commission have any questions, comments?
So if you've already, you're not asking permission for anything at this point. You've already done everything you wanna do. You're just letting us know what's happened.
On this lot, yes.
Okay.
Okay.
What's that?
All right, trying to catch the permitting up to the action.
So with that, I'll go ahead and close this portion of the hearing. If there's anybody in the audience that would like to comment or have any questions, please do so. Before you start asking, talking, please state your name and address.
Specifically on lot
And
one.
specifically lot one too, not the other one.
Mark Wisk.
Sir.
20 Rose- Mark Wisk, 20 Rose Circle.
Okay,
I'm just wondering about the hydrology of that lot and how the water flows downstream into the marshy areas beyond the wetlands and impacted by the description of the lot separation you just did.
So the original topography out here, it all drains back toward that well. So the existing condition had already drained in the same location. The way the site is graded hasn't been changed to direct any more areas to that wetland. The nature of clearing trees is always gonna increase stormwater.
Right.
So there will be a slight increase in stormwater runoff from this property back to the wetland. But it is a pretty significantly sized wetland to impound the amount of water from a single-family residence, so we would anticipate there's really gonna be much of any impact that would be, I guess, detectable in your, if you're downstream somewhere.
One dozen, yeah. Okay.
And also to note, it's a single-family residence, it's a single lot, so because it's a single-family residence, the Massachusetts stormwater guidelines don't apply. So there's nothing in the local regulations or state regulations that require a development like this with a single-family residence to put in any type of stormwater impoundment or detention basin or anything like that.
To make a long story short, you're anticipating problems anyway, so,
I don't.
okay, thank you.
that's your question?
Yep.
Okay. Anybody else? Sir?
Claude Chaplain, 32 Scenic Drive. So, this house that is now under construction, they have all their permits for that house,
Yes.
is that right?
Yes.
They don't need anything else to build that.
They need this permit here,
Yeah.
conservation, to finish the grading.
Why wasn't that gotten before?
The applicant wasn't aware they needed it because the work in the house was outside of the buffer zone. So,
It was the contractor that pushed
What
it
do
during.
you mean by a buffer zone?
so the wetland line here is
Yeah.
the physical edge of vegetated wetlands.
Okay,
So the Massachusetts Wetland Protection Act requires any work within 100 feet of that line to receive a notice of intent. So we have to bring it to a conservation commission to permit the disturbance. So because the grading occurred within that buffer zone, that's what's required. That work is required under a permit, and that's this permit we're trying
so
to
that's
get
all after the fact.
for the
That's
grading.
been done.
Yeah, it's.
If you were denied this, do you have to take that buffer zone out?
That's up to the commission to.
Please, yeah,
Jump in
yeah.
on this?
Yeah.
It is possible for a commission, and some have done this, to require an applicant who comes in and has already done work to restore the ground or the material to its original condition. I'm not suggesting we do that in this case.
Right.
I don't see there's necessarily any major impact. If it's very dry down there, the plants might appreciate the little more water it'll get from the one lot. We don't like it when folks don't come to us first, but we can't help it. So once we find that, then our agent steps in.
So you don't really need all of these rules?
No, they do. If
Why?
it's egregious
You're letting them do it.
But one very,
It's
I
the
guess,
men,
important fact is, this is a permittable activity underneath the Massachusetts wetland bylaws and the local bylaws.
What is a permittable,
Grading within the buffer zone.
then it's permitted.
With the permit.
With a permit, it's
Oh,
allowed
without a
activity.
permit, it's not permitted.
what we would likely do. if
Right now,
we
he
can-
does not have a permit.
That is correct.
That's correct.
So that's why it's not okay right now. Now, the commission, if we decided, oh, what you've done, we don't want that there, we've made people move stuff and change things. Whether we will in this case or not will be voted on in a few minutes.
Okay,
And
okay, this is just so that everybody understands exactly what's going on.
Understood.
Sure.
That's all.
And just because activity happens within the 100 feet, doesn't mean it can't happen. It just means we can permit it and condition it.
Okay.
That's what that means. It doesn't mean no work within 100 feet.
Yes. And our jurisdiction is within the wetland itself and that 100-foot buffer.
Right.
Anything outside of that doesn't fall to us.
Right.
So the house did not fall to us.
Right. The house is not in the wetland area or in the buffer area.
Correct, sir. Yes.
Okay.
The next one may be a different question, but we'll see.
And just to make it clear to everyone what we're doing here, so the role of the Conservation Commission is to keep things in compliance with the Wetland Protection Act. So, or to bring things back into compliance with the Wetland Protection Act. So right now, the site is not in compliance because they have unpermitted activity. We're making them go through this NOI process, which we would make anyone else go through normally ahead of time, would be the proper order of things. But we're making them go through this process, and assuming they present a satisfactory NOI, we could approve a permit, and then that would bring the site back into compliance because they now have a permit. Okay, so our role here isn't to punish people for doing things that they've done wrong, it's to make things right per the wetlands. Okay, we're not trying to dole out any kind of punishments, or you did this, so now you can't get that type of thing, okay?
So, and if he had come to us beforehand with this plan, chances are we would have permitted it with certain conditions, and we're talking about that right now.
Okay.
And chances are, if, as I mentioned before, if the contractor hadn't pushed all that stuff back into the 100-foot buffer, we probably would never known about it, because the house is outside that buffer area, so. Which triggered it. Are you all set?
I'm all set.
Okay, ma'am.
And Whisk, 20 Rose Circle.
Okay.
A lot of trees were taken down as we work from home right behind that site.
Mhm.
So say you permit this.
Yep.
And we see problems later, nothing happens.
So the permit that we issue is called an order of conditions. So that will lay out, it will include any site plans that they've presented, will carry on with that order of conditions. And if they finish this work in a way that is different from what is in the order, then again, they're gonna be out of compliance, And once they finish the work, they have to come back to us for a document called a certificate of compliance that basically says they did everything according to the permit they received. If they don't do things according to the permit that they get, then they're not gonna get their certificate of compliance and they're gonna have to change that.
And we would certainly encourage you, as anybody who lives near there, if you see something that you don't think is within, again, this is just for lot 1 now, we're not talking, haven't gone to the other lot. If you see something that doesn't look what you think is according to this permit, let us know. And Nick can always go out and check it out. Anybody else? Ma'am?
Claire Frida, Leominster City Council.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just curious, how was this determined that there was a violation?
I'm sorry, ask that again?
How was this determined that there's a violation? Who discovered that there was an issue?
Mr. Crime?
So I have been Eric Lind, the property owner, had gotten in touch with me last fall. I think it was maybe even last summer, it was a while ago, and had told me that he was planning on doing things here. I told him that at some point he would need to get a notice of intent. So he understood that. He went through with the demo and all that. At the time of the demolition, even any alteration, including that demolition, really should have been included in an NOI filing. But I myself had missed that lower section of the wetland that kind of juts down to the lower part of the plan. So I didn't realize that the original house was within the buffer zone. So at the time I advised him, you could take this house out, start construction, whatever, outside of the buffer. I gave him the approximate limits. And I said, as long as you're doing work outside the buffer, you don't need a permit from us. As soon as you go within 100 feet of the buffer, that's our jurisdiction. That's when you need a permit through conservation. So he understood that. It was after that he had hired a contractor to start the work on this house that was doing all the grading that had pushed the soil into the buffer zone. So that contractor was not aware of the regulations here. And then that's when I revisited the site and I discovered all that and got in touch with Eric, who was very responsive and started work on the NOI shortly after that. So that was about a month ago, and now that's what brings us to this point here.
So it's at the point where there's a foundation in,
Mm-hmm.
and it's ready to go with
No,
no
the house is
permit.
up.
The house is
The
built.
house is
The
up.
house is built,
Yeah.
The house is built, yeah.
the house is built, okay?
House is not within our jurisdiction.
House is outside.
The house is outside the 100-foot buffer, we have no jurisdiction over the house.
So,
It was
and this probably isn't on you, but when you went for a building, I can understand the frustration of people, because we hear this, I've been doing this for 35 years. I can tell you, people are frustrated with, how come somebody could do this? How did this happen? We're in a city that gives building permits and conservation and zoning variances all the time. How do you get to a point where a foundation and a house gets built?
Again, the house is not within our jurisdiction. We have nothing to do with the house.
But there are permits that weren't received before
We don't know that.
well, I thought that's what he's here for tonight.
This is for the lawn area, the portion of the lawn that's within the 100-foot buffer. That's really the only reason we're here.
This has nothing to do with the house, ma'am.
Right.
It's
Right,
purely that lot
I
here.
understand that, but
Okay.
the property, he would still, if he has to get a permit, something went wrong. You can get a
Agreed.
permit.
We're not here to assign blame. We're just trying to make sure that.
I'm not looking to assign blame, I'm just saying it's frustrating that
Okay.
things can go that
Fair enough.
far.
Yeah.
And now you're asking for, it's not practical that
And-
you're gonna make them move the house, obviously, or take something down, do something.
We have no reason to make him move the house.
Right, exactly, that's what I'm saying.
And after the fact, notice of intent, the after the fact permit is not the way we prefer to do this. But in this case, here we are. So again, we can condition work within that 100-foot buffer, and that's what we're here to do.
And we can vote against a house in the buffer, and we have done that. There's actually a case that's appealed now, because there was 2 houses on the street, if I may, briefly.
Please.
And one of them, the house wasn't at all within the buffer, and correct me, Stephanie, if I'm wrong, but part of the land was, but it wasn't gonna make a big difference. Then another property next to it included a house that was 90% within the buffer, and we said, no, that's too much impervious. I don't see that same impact here. Each case is treated separately
Right.
and judged based on our own judgment.
And its own merits or lack
And
thereof.
its own merits or lack thereof.
And if I may,
Thank you.
Please.
if in the building inspector really would have no reason not to permit that, because if they had excavated and put the soil out in front of the house, it wouldn't have impacted the wetlands at all. So it was a mistake by a contractor, who instead of stockpiling that, which might have been very valuable, pushing it out into the wetlands where they shouldn't, that's where the impact came in. And it's unfortunate, but, you know, Eric, I think, or the owner was trying to do as much as possible, just when that push happened out towards the wetlands, that's the problem.
Yeah, again, just to clarify, no material was pushed into the wetlands.
Yes,
Just
in the
into
buffer.
the
I'm sorry,
in the buffer zone.
Good point. And did we answer, did we answer your concerns?
Not everything, because we're gonna, I think we all need to look into it a little further as to how these things, you know, there's gotta be a better process, whether it starts with the building department and.
Well, I'll leave that with the city council, but
Right.
we're here with what we have.
Oh, I'm not questioning what
Okay.
you're.
Okay, sir.
On that line, Mick, we have encountered this problem several times, including from applicants who are city employees. And we would have thought would know better, not naming anybody. We have talked about doing some advertising to try to get the word out more about the Wetlands Protection Act, sending out little flyers. And we have not completed that task yet, but we've recognized this need and do need to do more about it. And we've talked about somebody talking with building department to make sure anyone who applies for something is given a notice about Wetlands Protection Act.
That's
So,
my point.
yes, agreed, and we've talked about it but haven't done much. Most of us are
If
pretty.
you'd like to work with us or somebody else to get that done, we'll be glad to work with you.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Anybody else? Nothing? All right, good. Well, thank you. I appreciate all the comments. That was great. And again, I really, we all, not just me, we all appreciate seeing an engaged community, because so many of our meetings, we've got, the only people in the audience are the applicants. So it's great to see that people are concerned and have questions and want to have something to say about it. So thank you very much. So with that, and assuming we have no more comments or questions from the commission, I'll go ahead and close the hearing.
Yep.
Are you all set? You have anything else?
Yep. All set.
Okay. Mr. Krupp, comments? What would you like to do?
Yeah, so obviously, we all recognize it's not the ideal order of events here that we've arrived to today, but you know, given the site, given the layout, the house is outside the buffer. It includes some grading within the buffer that has already mostly been completed up to this point. No alteration to the wetlands itself, it's all restricted mainly to the buffer. I would recommend that the commission approve the order of conditions for lot 1.
All right, thank you, Nick. So I'll entertain a motion to approve the order conditions for lot 1 at 43 Stagecoach Road.
Before we do, can I ask, is this the one that's got the Harvard Road address? No, yes?
Yes.
So I think there's a different address for it before we make the motion.
That's, lot one is technically 65 Harvard Street.
Okay, and we'll say the DT number too, that'll
Okay.
differentiate.
So then I'll withdraw that motion or that request, and I'll ask for ask another one. So I'll entertain a motion to approve the order condition for 43 Stagecoach Road, lot 1, also known as 65 Harvard Street, DEP file number 199-1177. Is there a motion?
I'll make that motion to approve.
Thank you, Richard. Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Thank you, Michael.
I'll take the rest of the commission's vote by roll call. That'll be Bob Seeker.
Aye.
Jim Chambers.
Aye.
Stephanie Quinlan.
Assuming that we have some requirements for restoring some amount of vegetation, like even like seeding.
Yo, he already mentioned putting,
Yes.
on the slope, putting it,
That's what
what
he said
would
he
you
was
call
gonna
it?
do.
Slope seeding.
Yes.
Are you all set with that?
Yeah.
Okay.
So that's an aye?
Aye.
Okay. And Chuck Rayner. Or,
You get Bob.
he seconded it. I got Bob.
Oh, you get Bob.
Everyone except
Aye.
for-
I vote aye.
So motion passes 6-0 and order is granted.
Alright.
For
Thank you.
lot 1.
No, are you guys still be there for the other one?
Watch
There you
this.
go. All right, so we'll go ahead and read this one into the record then. Pursuant to Mass General Laws, Chapter 131, Section 40, the Massachusetts Wetlands Protection Act, The Leominster Conservation Commission will hold a public hearing on a notice of intent for the construction of a single-family house and associated site work in a wetland buffer zone. Address 43 Stagecoach Road, Lot 2, map and parcel 325-352, DEP file number 199-1178. Does this have an alternate address?
Not that I'm aware of.
Okay, just want to make sure. All right,
It was originally 43 Stagecoach.
okay, fair enough.
So this is the second lot, which is directly to the west of lot 1. It's about 1.2 acres in size. The applicant purchased this property with the intent to construct these two houses. Lot 1 is his son, and lot 2 is going to be the applicant's wife. So the impacts on this property also include grading impacts from the buffer zone, and a little better than half of the house is also located within the 100-foot buffer zone. You can see the 100-foot buffer zone line right here goes through the house. Based on the orientation and shape of the lot, the house is located pretty much to the front corner of the lot to try to keep it out of the buffer zone as much as possible, with still have a usable area, front yard and driveway. There are some trees out in front that are large and mature like you saw today, so that was a safe distance away from those trees. Grading impacts here, as you can see, along the west side of the property, include a slope. So the grading that occurred previously here does extend right here behind the existing shed. This existing shed is going to be demolished as part of the site work on this property. And as the applicant said, there's been a significant amount of trash and debris that's been removed out of this area as part of the initial site work that's been done.
Excuse me. Has this property been legally subdivided?
Yes. Yep. So planning board has already approved the A&R plan.
Are you all set?
Yeah.
Oh, okay, all right, go ahead, Mike.
Was there a structure on this lot before? Was there a house there?
There was a house, the shed's here. I'm not sure if the house in its entirety was on this parcel.
So somewhere.
So it was somewhere basically in the vicinity of this. It was out in front of the shed.
So it was pre-existing.
A little bit closer to the street.
So it was one parcel at one
It
time.
was one parcel, yes. It was subdivided a year or so ago into these parcels.
Oh, there weren't two houses there?
No, it was one house.
Because I thought you showed where the one was behind this first house.
This is the big shed that was there today.
That's-
So the big wooden shed that was there, that's the second structure, but it was basically a shed to the.
So the house that was removed though was.
Roughly where.
Was roughly where exactly where this
okay,
house
so
is.
you
It was right in
said-
front.
I was picturing it by the other house. Okay.
No, it was in front of the shed out here, so basically in the same footprint of where the second house is proposed.
Approximately how much bigger in square footprint is this proposed house versus the one that had been there? Do you have any estimates of that?
I do not.
Do you have any idea?
The original house had a main house, it had an addition, and then it had another addition. So I would say it's compatible.
It's approximately the same size?
Well, I can't tell you approximately, but I mean, compatibility is based on the footprint that it had.
Okay, so compatibility, to me, that means the footprint is
Right,
about
but
the
I
same.
can't tell you there was like 2,200 square feet there, because I don't know,
Okay.
right? I can only tell you that
But it was. It was
the original
house-
structure
the final
had
house was an
main
addition.
structure, addition,
Okay.
and then another addition.
Okay, all right.
There's also the shed there, which is gonna be removed, and you're not putting anything else
No.
to replace that. Okay.
You know, basically that shed is most comparable to the garage in the backside here.
That grading behind the house,
Yes.
what's the contour interval between those lines?
So to minimize the impacts here, this is a 2-to-1 slope. So we propose the same thing, it's a 2-to-1 slope. It's down elevation 485 up to about 497, so it's about a 12-foot grade difference between the total slope
12
and
feet.
the grade in the backyard.
Okay, this all goes about 24 feet.
Yeah, so this whole slope here will be the same, it will be graded, it'll be planted with the slope seed mix.
How close does that get? Sorry, John.
Slope seed mix meaning grass or some type of like wildflower?
No, it's like it's not just wildflower, it's a grass, it's like a shrubby herbaceous mix that's gonna grow and stabilize the slope.
Okay.
That's what will never be
Is that
maintained.
gonna have, so it's
That's
gonna be
gonna
left?
grow in, that's
It's
gonna
gonna- okay.
grow in.
Okay.
So the flat area up here above this contour, I kept them about 12 feet from the side of the house
Okay.
to give area to be able to get around the house. And then the backyard off the deck, this corner's about 15 feet, and about 25 feet off the back of the house is a flat yard. So it's not a big yard, big mobile yard, but because of the proximity to the wetlands, we minimize it as much as possible.
And you said that the existing shed's going?
The existing shed's going.
Okay. All right, so it looks to me like between the house that had been there, in addition to the shed that's gonna be going as well, the square footage may be about the same between the three.
I would say that's a fair estimate.
Yeah, and this is the actual house footprint that he's building. So it's a house that we picked out.
Oh, no, understood.
So it's not just a block we put on the plan, it's that shape and size for a reason.
Is there gonna be anything, so I assume that lawn in back will be more or less flat?
Yes.
And so, but then it's gonna hit that slope. Is there gonna be any kind of a wall or anything at the top of that slope?
We haven't proposed anything.
Yeah, I don't think so. I think to kind of just keep the whole natural slope thing.
Okay, so it's gonna be lawn up to the top of the slope and then just natural vegetation down below that?
Correct.
What if,
And you kind of saw today when we did the sidewalk. That slope
unfortunately,
on the side,
I couldn't make the sidewalk, yeah.
the slope on the sides are already grown in with vegetation. It's chest high.
Okay. I don't have any more questions. Anybody else on the commission have any questions, comments? Richard?
Remind me again, how close is the work that's being done to the wetland border?
So at the total slope here, at the bottom of grading, we're about 15 feet from the edge of wetland. And again, from that 15 feet, that's all gonna grow back into vegetative state. It won't be maintained, it won't be mowed. And we're it's about 60 to 70 feet to the house. So I approximate from the edge of the wetland line to the backyard is at about 40 feet.
And again, silt fence and straw wall?
Silt fence and straw wall. Yes.
Where specifically?
So the silt fence and straw wall, we have all the way up to basically the right of way. So all the way off of the street, following the total slope, all the way back around to where it meets the existing silt fence, which is right here behind the.
Will that remain after the work?
It'll remain until it's stabilized. Yes. It has to be fully stabilized before we can come for a COC.
That barrier had caught a fair amount there. It was working well. From what it appeared physically today.
Anybody else on the commission have any thoughts or questions?
Yeah, I've got a couple. Can you tell me the height difference from this, the edge of wet to this portion here? I wanna know the distance here.
Yep, so the edge of wet contour that runs through the wetland here is 483. And up at the top of slope, we're at 497. But at the bottom of our grading, we're at
That's a good slope.
485.
I'm thinking, Chuck, since we've got such a big intrusion into the 100-foot buffer zone, I think I'd like to see some native trees or more sturdier vegetation rather than just grass being there.
Well, the slope?
Yeah.
It's not just grass.
Oh, it's
Yeah,
not. Oh, I thought that's what you said.
It's-
See,
mention that again.
that's why I wanted to identify.
No,
what you
we got that already been mentioned. Go, can you describe it again?
It's a slope seed mix, so it's a mix of vegetative flowers, wetland mixes, meadow seed, grasses, and shrubs.
It's not gonna be maintained
It's
at all.
not gonna be maintained, it grows in.
It's just gonna grow.
Thicken that.
Which would be better than turf for stabilizing that slope.
I agree.
I think that's better than the grass we saw at the other site that we visited today.
Correct.
Also.
I agree with that
That's
too.
steep hill.
I agree with that too.
And that slope was pre-existing.
There is a significant slope that's there, but we are moving it out. You can see the total slope is here. It's probably about 20 feet from the edge, or 25 feet from the edge versus 12 to 15 feet.
You're approaching
Yes.
toward the wetland itself.
It's kind of hard to see. Was there any trees removed in this area before?
Not on that side.
Not on that side.
No.
That's the vegetation that was there.
And the house was there.
Yeah, the house was there.
Well, the house is over here.
No, but the existing house was in the same location.
Yes, right, yeah, I realize that, but now we're upping against the edge of wet. I didn't know, I don't have that map at this time, and I'm just curious that, it's just a big intrusion into the 100-foot buffer zone, that's
It is,
all.
but again, it's not gonna be a used, maintained, manicured lawn, it's gonna
Understand.
reestablish itself in vegetation that's not gonna be maintained.
And again, Bob, that's the reason I mentioned before is because there was an existing structure there.
Right.
So there are certain, I might use the wrong term, or privileges or rights that come along with having an existing structure, and they're just replacing it.
Were there any vehicles removed from that area?
No, we haven't removed any vehicles. There's only 2 that we're aware of.
You removed 2 over here?
But we haven't removed any, they're still there.
You're talking about deep into the woods.
Deep into the woods,
Deep into the woods, or a couple
like
feet.
500 feet plus back.
But around the side of the original house, there were a number
No
of
vehicles.
There were no vehicles.
Sheds, storage areas, bins,
Okay.
I mean, you name it. Again, a hoarder type material.
Yeah. Okay.
With boats, trash, rubble, like you said, there was 40-yard dumpsters that.
And you stated that you had removed a couple 40-yarders of.
More than a couple.
You said 10.
How many?
Probably close to 10.
There was no metal or anything in those?
Probably a couple of metal sheds.
Okay.
Yep.
You didn't find any hazardous material along with anything?
So I had with the building department, when you do a demo permit, you have to go through that. So I had the asbestos people come in and look at it, then I had it remediated. Yep. I had pest control come in and check it, and then they remediated it.
Okay, well, my only comment is I understand what we're doing here, and it's probably sufficient, but I still like to see a couple trees put in.
There were no trees taken out there, Bob.
That's okay.
I tried to decorate, so I feel that.
So we don't have a particular landscaping plan yet, but we certainly intend on planting trees.
Oh, okay.
We're not gonna plant them now, because they're just gonna get in the way.
Yeah.
But once we're done, we are definitely gonna be planting some trees.
I mean,
It's very sunny.
Being in the buffer, I'll ask you, you're more than encouraged to do that, but before we do that, could you let Nick know?
Before we plant?
Before you plant, yeah. That he might have some comments on what kind of species might fit in well.
I was gonna say, I mean, would that be something you'd be comfortable with accepting as a condition in the permit that you
As
plan?
long as you don't pick a tree that's gonna cost me $900.
Oh, yeah, just saying.
We'd ask for a native species.
Yeah, so the maples and things of that nature?
I think a reasonable condition would be, we have a landscape architect on staff, is when he goes to do plantings, we can propose a plan, we can give you a plan to review. You know, if you made a condition that you were able to review what plants or what trees you wanted to plant prior to him planting them.
What are the trees gonna mitigate? What issue are we asking them for?
Well, that's just it. There were no trees removed, but he said he was thinking of putting in some trees.
Understood, but why would we condition it necessarily? Aside from coloring,
Water management, sediment management.
Yeah, but Rich has a good point though. There were no trees. There were no trees taken out. We're not trying to replicate anything that was there. So that Rich has a good point.
But we would like to see the site either stay the same or improve in terms of the value of the site, right? So that would be.
How about
We can't answer it, I'm just not sure what that does for the soil or anything else there necessarily versus
Provide
shrubs going
shade.
down the.
How about this then? Just to prevent the addition of foreign, potentially invasive species, about a special condition, you say if any trees are, because it's in the buffer zone, it's our jurisdiction. If any trees are proposed to be planted there, that they come to the agent and they can work out appropriate native, potentially wetland-friendly species. Versus trying to replicate any condition that we can't.
Personally, I think it's fine to, if we put in a condition for after construction, that the landscape architect from McCarty, right? Yeah, so from McCarty presents that plan to me for the slope. And then I can bring that to you guys and deal with it.
Honestly, I don't think you need to come to us. I think if you're fine with the species they propose to plant, I'm fine with that.
Yeah, but just I'll put that in as a condition that they have to present me with some sort of plan for that slope.
So it would be
For the
approved
slope?
administratively, not in a public meeting.
Yeah, yeah.
For the
I'm
slope,
sorry,
for the
your,
trees.
your name was,
For the,
Up above.
are you okay with that?
Yes.
Okay.
for the plants along the slope that might include
The
trees.
one that are in the mix he's talking about.
Yeah.
We'll
That's
present
fine.
something.
Yeah, okay,
I'm okay with that.
okay.
No
A
big
lot of conversation about that. Michael,
If I may, what's the style of the house and which way is let me tell you where I'm going with this. The new house, the house that is on the left, the one that's built, is a fairly large home. This appears to be a much bigger footprint, which it was pre-existing, so that's fine. Which way is the roof going to slope? I'm kinda, you've got a lot of impervious.
So it's a hip style roof, and it's only one story.
And it's only one story.
That's why the footprint is larger.
Is there a possibility of conditioning some stormwater going out towards the driveway to keep it out of the buffer zone? Is that
So there's no stormwater control in that street at all.
No, I'm talking about something on little retention pond or something, just to keep all that water coming off the roof from shedding down
I
into
mean,
the.
where are you gonna put it with a slope like that?
Yeah, and it's gotta go down the slope anyway, so it's gonna be running.
And there was already obviously a building there.
Mm-hmm.
And again, it's going in, so I'm not sure what
It wouldn't accomplish anything else.
Speaking
we're
of,
gonna. Didn't we talk, one second, if you go back, didn't we talk about that today? As to where the stormwater might go? Or
We
no?
spoke about it on View Street.
Was that a different, that was View Street?
Yeah, so speaking of which, I'm sorry, very quickly, so we'll get to the public in a few minutes, you know, you're all set. What the current plan is, what are you proposing to do with stormwater, with roof runoff at this point? Just let it run under the ground?
So we haven't submitted for a building permit yet, obviously, because
Okay.
we're going through this process
Okay.
right now. But usually what happens is the building department recommends, it's because there's no stormwater control, you do a couple of French drains, something just to help it permeate into the
Okay.
earth.
Okay.
That seems, that seems fine.
Anybody else on the commission have any thoughts, comments, questions?
I just.
Jim?
There were trees cut down.
Not in this lot.
Not
We're-
all,
no,
so,
no.
okay. And that's, what I'm trying to reconcile is that this was one lot, and the environment is that it's a.
Yeah,
same
environmental stop on the property,
environment.
understood, but we do have to handle these individually, and on this lot, there were no trees removed. Does that answer your question, your concern? I'm not answering.
Well, all I was gonna suggest, if there were trees that were removed, they would replace in kind.
Yeah, that's okay, all right.
so I do have concerns with stormwater infiltration. I don't think it has a lot of space to successfully infiltrate. It's just gonna be running down the slope and directly into the wetland.
But
That was my concern.
it will, but the slope, in my estimation, from what, based on your description, will be fully stabilized.
When it's vegetated.
When it's vegetated, correct, yeah.
It'll be a thick.
Hold on a second, Rich. Just so. Well, you don't know where these French drains will be.
I mean, I guess, okay, so I understand how that works in like a flat space. As long as you've got 50 feet, you can have adequate infiltration and recharge outside the wetland. But on a slope like this, I don't know if that is gonna impact the amount of space that you need for that infiltration to be successful. Because if there's still a lot of rain coming down, regardless of that vegetation, like gravity is still gonna be a bigger deal than having some shrubs.
Yeah, I would imagine that the runoff going in that direction will only be from one side of the roof, where the other side of the roof will go the other direction. Probably also towards the street, I'd imagine.
And with the hip roof, the runoff is gonna run to all four sides.
All four sides.
All right.
It's gonna
All
be,
four
it's
sides,
not
okay.
the full, you know, and then the French drain he's talking about is like a perimeter drain that runs along the foundation of the house on all four sides. So there'll be a stone trench basically along the drip line.
Okay,
of the-
all right.
So whether there's no gutters or whether it's guttered, the gutters will all be directed, and that runoff will all be directed around.
I mean, I'd like to point out, we got, like, what, 3 inches of rain yesterday? You guys were on site today, seemed like most of the grading in that was stable enough, there wasn't a
pretty
lot of
soupy,
water.
Well, in the low points.
It is all mud.
Yeah, and it's a silty soil.
So I guess this is very quick, I suppose this begs a question for myself. What's a hip roof then?
The hip roof is basically the roof pitches on all four sides.
All four
So it's not like
sides.
a gable end
I'm thinking of, I thought it was a roof that's kind of shaped like a,
gambrel.
no, it actually kind of goes like the hip.
Mansard roof, like round?
I don't know. It's good, never mind. I'm not gonna make you people educate me at this point. Rich, you got something?
Just to offer another opinion on the water, I'm not bothered at all by the water going from the roof and down into the wetland period. The wetlands are in effect there to absorb this water, and they like the water. This one is not incredibly wet, from what the description was. The stream's not always, it's a drainage ditch. Plus, there was already a house there, so I don't see any issue, unless there was an erosion path of how it got down that slope, that would be a problem. But if it's
Well,
going
that's the
percolating
concern
through
with the roof.
It is,
You got a lot coming off the roof.
and until
But there was a
this,
roof there already anyway, and it is what it is.
and again, that erosion control is gonna stay in place until the slope's stable.
Right, correct.
until it can handle the flow of the water.
Yeah, so if it's eroding, if there's a problem, the erosion control's there, and we can't get our COC until it's fixed and do what it's supposed to be doing.
Good point.
The hip roof design is actually.
Oh, no, we're past that. Thank you,
No,
Bob.
I'm just,
No,
this
that's
is for Ken's, self-thought about it. The distribution of water is more equal on all four sides with a hip roof than it is with a regular roof.
With an A-frame.
Is it a bow roof? Is that what I'm thinking of?
Yeah.
I have a hip roof, it's the strongest roof you can build.
All right, we're past it.
I think,
No, I, never mind. We're gonna wait too long about this.
And one thing we are dealing with is the city has already been kind enough to put a storm drain down into the land, taking all the street water and putting it onto the property, so that's something we've gotta consider that's out of their
In
control.
1963, it was put there. 1963, it was put there. So it's been there a while.
So I think it's better to have the water go into the wetland than into the city storm sewer.
No, it's just a catch basin that dumps into the property.
Oh,
There is
into
no,
it.
right, there is no.
Anyway, so it's going there anyway.
Yes.
Yeah, it's on there anyway, that's what.
Even if you got into the street, it's gonna take a left to go back in.
Okay.
That's what they're for, the water.
We all set? We kind of
Yeah, we beat this dead
beat
horse.
this dead horse, I'm gonna say that, yeah. All right, so I'll go ahead and close this portion of the hearing. If anybody in the audience has any questions or comments, please, you're welcome to do so now, but please state your name and address first. Sir,
Question for you.
name and address, please.
Claude Chaplain, 32 Scenic Drive.
Thank you.
A question about the level, the grade of the house. Now, I go by that every day, and I've seen this house, I know it's built.
Mhm.
He has a garage that faces the front. And unless I'm hallucinating, from the road to get into his garage goes downhill.
it was collecting
Ex-
water.
exi-
You're saying
existing.
the water's gonna go into the wetlands, it's gonna
He's
go right
talking
into
about
their
lot one.
house.
He's talking about lot one right now.
Okay.
Well,
We haven't
it ties
elevated the
in.
driveway or anything yet, but none of that's been built in the front.
So sir, if you talk about
On the
lot
second.
one, then
Well, what's the level gonna be for lot two? Because the water's gonna go downhill, it's going in their house.
Sir,
They are
sir,
downgrade.
we don't need to be raising our voices, please,
It-
please. He's showing the grade on the map.
Is it downhill from the road?
Sir, is it down, with,
I'm not an engineer. I always know what I see.
he's answering the question.
Elevation in the roadway here is 494, 495, we're about 5 feet high.
You're 5 feet high in the road.
Yes. Yes, from right here
I
in the
need
front.
glasses.
The
That's
further
the
you,
second home, the new home.
the
Right.
further you go down Harvard
Well, the
Street.
second house is enough. I don't
No,
know
no,
where
right.
it's going.
No, but
And he's telling you.
The further you
No.
go up Harvard Street, it goes up to about 502, and you're right, that, the house on lot one is down around 500, it's about 2 feet lower than the road.
There you go.
But the way that you,
We're done with lot
But-
one, but that water that we're done with is going into his house.
but you don't understand that it's not done yet, it's not graded out, the yard's not finished, it's graded now
Are
to
you,
drain around
are
the
you
house.
going to put the dirt above the floor of the garage?
No, it's gonna come down and go up to the house.
Not for lot one. You can say we're not on lot one, but we are on
Lot one
one.
is not finished.
The
grading is
floor
not
of the
done.
garage is below the
The
road.
house is in.
You're gonna
the
change
grading-
that?
The house is in, the grading around it is not finished. So once the site work's done, it's not
So
gonna.
you're not gonna have to go downhill for either one of these houses.
No, of course you do. Yes, for this.
Yeah, of
lot
course you
one.
do. The water's going in their house.
He doesn't understand.
They are at the end of your property. And all that property goes downhill. Right now, there's a small lake behind my house. I'm at the end of that property. I don't need any more water coming up because now it's gonna start reaching my house. You're already gonna approve that lot 1, so that's not in play. But it's still gonna impact me. If it impacts me, there's gonna be a problem. And it's going to their house. I know where they live, and it's all downhill from the road, their house, it goes downhill.
And
Are you talking about the opposite side of the road?
No.
Because that house, that backyard floods every time it rains.
I know, because there's a stream that goes under, there's a stream underground that goes over through your property.
This whole property, before this work happened, drained to this wetland. It's the same.
And they
condition.
are at the end of that.
Okay, well, it's an existing condition,
It's
we're
maintaining
maintaining
existing
drainage.
conditions.
Same amount of
You're gonna
water,
make it
same amount of
worse.
water fell.
You're gonna make it worse.
You don't know that. There is an existing house there already
Yes,
on lot
there is.
2. And there's gonna be a house afterwards. So there's,
I
they're
understand
not
that part.
changing the conditions.
But now is the time to make sure that second house is sited properly.
That's what they're here for.
Because they're
That's-
telling me that,
that's why
he's
they're
telling
for
me the grade isn't finished. But if they're planning on building a house that's the same level as the first house, the water's going from the road all downhill.
It was and it will continue to. They're not changing the conditions.
We're not changing the drainage patterns.
Right.
So we're not here to protect our property.
It's an existing condition we're maintaining.
We're correct.
We are here to protect.
How can you
people's
guarantee the water
property.
table isn't gonna change?
You can't.
Can't.
Water tables change every day.
Yeah, water table goes up and down every single day.
So now's the time
It
to
went
make
up with,
sure.
water table went up with the rain
They're
yesterday, it's gonna
siting
go
the
down
house
throughout the course of
properly.
the week.
Is that a condition that has to be put in?
I'm sorry, what was that again?
Now's the time for property number 2 to site the house proper level. Is that a condition that gets put into this? I mean, we're here for conditions because they're impacting,
We are, go ahead, finish.
they're impacting a wetland. They've already made a mistake on the first one. You're gonna allow them to do another mistake on the second one?
I'm not convinced they're affecting the wetlands.
Can I try?
Yes, please, go ahead.
Leave that in
What we've got here is an area of land. In this area of land, rain has been falling forever. It lands in this area. And it's always come, if it's come from the road, it's always come from the road. So what buildings go here are not stopping how much rain, how much water actually comes into the area. They are not increasing the
No,
amount
but
of
they're
water.
gonna,
They're redirecting it.
Let him finish.
But that's what we're here for, is to make sure as they redirect it, they're redirecting it into the right way to avoid, to mitigate the impact on the wetlands. But any of this work is not increasing the amount of water that is flowing down here.
no, but
That water's already got here.
that's right, but it's
Redirecting
redirecting
it.
more water.
No, it's
That's
not.
not true.
It's bringing it right back to where it was.
There's no
before.
evidence here that
Want to
says
see
more
this?
stormwater.
If you walk this site,
Today I
It's
didn't
all
know the
downhill.
rest of the commission was.
it's all downhill.
And it will continue to be downhill.
I know, but if
To the
you
wetland.
cite stuff on it that's going to direct the water more to their house,
You don't know that. You can't say that based on these plans. You can't say that. It's gonna go, so ma'am, where on this map do you live? Down there, okay. That's several hundred feet away. So I don't see that something several hundred feet away down the course of an existing wetland that is there to absorb water, stormwater runoff. There's nothing here that indicates that any work on this property is gonna impact her several hundred feet away with a wetland in between. The wetland is there to absorb runoff.
I'm not an expert on how water travels. I only know that the land, all that land there is in a downhill pattern.
And will continue to be.
Yeah, so all water goes downhill.
Correct.
Anything that gets put in its way that's not there now, the first house wasn't there before, there was no house, so that has an impact.
Okay.
You're sending more water.
And that,
Downhill.
and sir, and that house is outside our
I
jurisdiction.
understand that,
It's,
but you're talking about another house that's gonna be built, that's gonna impact.
I get the feeling here.
I don't,
Go ahead.
just let me tell you, I'm not against you building your house there. I just want to make sure.
This is why we hire the professionals, to make sure it's done.
I know, but there's already a mistake made on the first one.
You're
Not a
calling-
big
you're
mistake,
calling
not a
it a
big
mistake.
deal.
Okay, no, we're cross-talking, I will not allow cross-talking here, please do not do that. Sir, I think we've addressed your concerns sufficiently. If you vehemently disagree, then take it up with Mr. Kremp after the fact, but I think we've covered your issue
Okay.
several times over
I'm
time.
just bringing it up, that's why all of these
appreciate it.
people are here, because I'm assuming all of these people feel that they're gonna be impacted.
Okay,
And if you make a decision that's gonna impact them more, they're just gonna be calling it, and if it doesn't impact, or if it helps, they'll be happy. I understand all
Okay.
that. I just wanna make sure, because already a mistake has been made.
okay.
So
Understood.
let's not make another one. That's all.
I'll say something I've already said. If after these houses are built, and you have what you think is way more water on your property than you did before, and you think it's because of this, come and see Mr. Crump, and he can go out and investigate, and we can check it out.
And what will that do for me?
Then they may have to change their drainage patterns at that point. But based on what you're presenting here tonight, water's running downhill now, it'll continue to run downhill. We don't see any impacts on minimal impacts, but they're not minimal impacts on the stormwater runoff based on what he's showing us tonight.
It's the same amount of water, the rate that it approaches the wetland may change a little bit because of the impervious nature of the two buildings and the driveways. But otherwise, the volume of water is still the same. And so within hours after the rain's done and as it's percolating through, it can slightly increase the max flow rate as it goes into that drainage, but that's about it. And I think that's large enough to absorb impact from a single house.
Thank you. So I'm gonna move on. Thank you, sir. I appreciate your input. Ma'am, name and address, please.
My name is Ann Wisk, 20 Rose Circle. Just to go back to the house one for just a moment, if I could. I know they did remove a lot of trees. Are they planning to replace any behind that house? How far from the house is the yard? Did you say 50? 100 yards or?
I'd say the total slope, or the top of slope is probably 60, 70 feet.
Oh, okay, that's all.
And we are gonna put in a special condition that if he does wanna put in some trees, which he doesn't have to,
Yeah.
because it's gonna be fully stabilized, but if he wants to, then just work with the agent on site appropriate native species that are suitable for this area.
Can I just ask one more question?
You may.
And it really doesn't have to do with this a little bit, but does
Okay.
it concern you at all? Like, you're saying you're pulling all this stuff out of like there's cars and everything back there. Are you concerned at all about what else could be back there? I know it's not
Yeah,
for anybody to pull
there's-
up, but like, what's back there?
Yeah.
There's old cars sitting back there, and it's definitely not ideal, but it would, it's on his land, it's
Yeah.
his purview whether he wants to remove it or not, and he would have to file, because it would be work in wetlands, he'd have to bring machines in, that would be a whole other
Yeah,
It
right.
file.
would actually do more damage to drag,
bring
you'd
that
have
out.
to take down more trees and
Right.
drag it out, it would
Yeah.
do more damage.
What a
Sure.
shame.
That was the point I wanted to make.
Yeah, and
Just what Nick had said.
It is a shame,
Yeah.
it is
too-
a shame that people do that.
So much damage to go get there and get it out, that at this point, just leave it alone.
Anything that's leaked, we figure is leaked.
It's already leaked.
It's been there for decades.
Yeah.
You all set? Okay. Anybody else?
Just an unbiased opinion, because I did walk the site today.
Bob, hold on a second, just to make sure. So nobody else in the public, your folks all set? Okay, go ahead, Bob.
Yeah, I was there to walk the site today and went probably 25 feet into the buffer zone out to the wetland, and the good rain that we had yesterday, several inches, it had permed right in. There was nearly no standing water, very little, mosquitoes a little bit. And I think the applicant took the best foot forward and, you know, stabilized the site real good with the siltation fence that I seen today, was in good intact and, was doing his job, so. I think he's gonna do the right thing with adding, the correct vegetation to it in the future, so.
Okay. All right.
Good.
Thank you. All right, so with that, I'll go ahead and close the hearing. Nick, what are your recommendations?
So, for lot two, again, not ideal series of events here, the order that this has gone in, but we're going through the proper procedures now. Give a very thorough presentation. Maybe just to quickly address some of the concerns that came up here, you know, as was stated before, there's nothing that the applicant can really do, even if you wanted to, that's going to cause more water to fall on this site. That's just not how it works, you know. As Mr. Chambers said, same amount, whatever rainfall is happening on that site is gonna happen. With impervious surfaces, we worry about not increased water, but increased peak runoff. So like Dr. Gullick said, that the only change that's gonna happen there is in heavy rain events. Maybe the peak flow of water may increase when more impervious surfaces are added, but when we're talking about single family houses, you know, obviously it's a big roof, a lot of impervious surface, but it's comparatively little when you talk about single family houses as compared to warehouses or multi-family subdivisions. So I understand the concerns that were raised here, but comparatively, single family homes are negligible in terms of the amount of impervious surface they add to the entire site, or could be, and
On a site this size.
yeah, on a
We
site,
have had smaller ones where
This
the commission thought it made a difference.
Yeah,
But this is a much larger wetlands.
right, if the site is a quarter acre and you're putting a gigantic house, that's gonna have a more of an effect on that lot, obviously. So we're not saying there's no alterations of, anything you do is gonna lead to alterations in the way that water travels through the site. What we're saying is, you know, we can't, just because there's any impact doesn't mean that we can't say you can't do what you wanna do on your property. Mr. Lynn owns this property, he has a right to build houses as long as he's going through the process, which he is. It's not ideal the way we're getting here, but he's going through the process right now. We're reviewing it. We are doing what we can to address any concerns, but what he's presented is up to the standards of what we typically accept here. So based on all that and the site walk we had today, I would recommend that we approve this site with the added condition of you know, having the landscape architect come to me after construction to propose a site for that slope. But that is my recommendation.
All right, with that, then I will entertain a motion along the lines of what the agent just recommended.
Make that motion.
Thank you, Jim. Is there a second?
I'll second it, Chuck.
Thank you, Bob.
Okay. Take the rest of the commission's vote by roll call. Stephanie Quinlan.
Aye.
Mike Seekey.
Aye.
Richard Gullick.
Aye.
And Chuck Raymond.
Aye.
All right, motion passes 6-0, and you have your order.
Thank you very much.
Everybody, thank you so much for showing up. Again, this result may or may not be what you wanted, but we think it is appropriate for the conditions and as described to us. So again, we appreciate an engaged and inquisitive public, and I hope you come to some more meetings.
Yeah, seriously, thank you, and I hope this hasn't, you know, dampened your enthusiasm for trying to participate, because it does mean something for us to hear where people are coming from. So thank you.
Should.
Yeah, it does.
It does.
Yeah, sincerely, yeah. Thank you.
Is this meeting over?
No, we've got some more items.
This hearing.
This hearing is over.
Yeah, we're done with 43 Stagecoach.
Right.
When can we expect the order?
Sometime in the next 3 weeks. So I didn't have the order ready because I wasn't really sure how this was gonna go, but you're owed it in the next 3 weeks, so.
Do we have to come back for you to sign it, or you just sign it?
No, I'll get their signatures and I'll send it out to you.
Great, thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Thank you, Eric.
Thanks, Eric.
Yep.
All right. Have a good night, everyone.
Excuse me?
Yeah.
I just have a minute? I just wanna know what's gonna happen to the rest of the land. I mean, is that not buildable?
That third
Well,
lot is, they didn't propose anything, he could
Okay.
come back at a later time and propose something, potentially.
There's nothing in front of us at all, so that's all conjecture at this point.
Yeah,
Okay,
but I will say, just that third lot that they had, based on where the wetlands are and the amount of filling that would need to, when you're working in wetlands,
yeah,
we require that there's a replication or they recreate another wetland somewhere else on the site, so
Okay.
it would be way too complicated, it's basically.
okay,
So-
That's if we allowed it at all,
okay, then.
within the.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hey, you're welcome, have a good night.
You too.
All set? Okay, all right, good, moving on to, some, folks, if you can conversation outside, please. Thank you.
Thank you. All right.
All right, moving on, continued hearings. They're both gonna get continued, is that correct, again?
For 45 North Street, maybe I would like a little bit of discussion, I just have some questions
Okay.
for people,
Okay.
but,
View Street's gonna get continued, but I'll read it in anyway.
View Street, we don't need to read it in, I mean, we don't need, we won't open it. I'll just say, Carl did get back to me, about the grass mix, it's a perennial mix.
It is granted, correct.
So, but that's all the news I have on that.
But we can cross it off the agenda.
Correct, yeah.
Yeah.
So if anybody was here for the View Street property, that's being continued probably until, what, the
25th of July. We weren't gonna be able to vote on it because we didn't get a number for it, so.
No DP file number.
Yeah.
All right, so I'll go ahead and moving on to the next one then. I will read this into the record because there is some discussion to have. Pursuant to Mass General Laws, Chapter 131, Section 40, the Massachusetts Wetlands Protection Act, the Leominster Conservation Commission will hold a public hearing on notice of intent for tree removal, construction of a coop, and associated machine work. Address 445 North Street, I said North Ave, map and parcel 289-1, DEP file number 199-1173. What's going on?
So Mr. Samos has been in touch with me. There's been some more back and forth with the abutting property owner, Mr. Quattrale. I guess Phil hadn't realized, but Mr. Quattrale is looking to just continue communicating him strictly through email. So I guess Phil was trying to call him and wasn't getting through, but now he knows that, Alan Quattrale is only gonna really talk to him through email because he wants more of a record of what's going on, depending on how this goes in the future.
Not a bad move.
So that's contributed to some of the delay here. Phil did send me an updated map just today. I didn't get a chance to put it on the drive yet, but it basically shows the location of the stream mapped out on his parcel with a series of like 50-foot radius circles along it to just kind of mark like the 50-foot line from the stream. But after some of the discussion on the site visits this morning and talking to Phil, I just wanted to clarify with some of the people here. So I remember we talked about you guys preferring a 50-foot distance either from the stream bank or from just any wetland edge at all for the chicken coop. Saying the chicken coop has to be at least 50 feet from either one of those lines. So which line would you like to see that 50 feet from? And based on that, I'm going to go back to Norse Environmental and see, because he's already had the area delineated. He's paid for the services through Norse Environmental and they produced that map. That wasn't super satisfactory, but I was gonna reach out to them and see if they'd be willing to come back out to the site and stake, like, put like stakes in the ground or something along their flag line to just clearly mark it on site. But I just wanted to see, like, take the temperature of everyone, like, so.
I have a temperature.
Yeah, so you would prefer the wetland edge, right?
Well, I'd like to, if I may.
Yeah, please, tell me.
I'll read into the record the minutes that we're gonna approve in a few minutes, from May 9th. It says, Mr. Kremp recommended that the commission ask Mr. Simons to return with a professionally rendered map showing the location of each wetland flag and existing structures and proposed new location of coop. So then I made a motion, which Mrs. Quinlan then seconded, to continue the hearing until Mr. Simoes is able to hire a wetland consultant to produce professional maps showing the location of wetland flagging and the proposed new coop's location. I did not change my position from then. We have a vote on that. So there was supposed to be a professional hire. Now that I've seen the 50 feet, I think I underestimated or overestimated how far away it is. I'm not comfortable with the 50 feet anymore. From the stream.
That's just from the stream, not from the wetlands.
And
So I
from the
think,
stream,
yeah.
and some of them, Stephanie had questioned, maybe it should be 50 feet from the wetland, and that's already a big compromise from the 100 feet.
Right.
So, yeah, I would wanna see it, and I'd wanna see it.
Yeah, we want to see wetland flagged and staked.
And the 50 feet for me personally is now off the table. That was something we might consider. I went and looked at the site and where it was measured, and didn't like the 50 feet.
My position remains 50 feet from the edge of the wetland.
Of a wetland.
Of a
okay.
wetland, as determined by a wetland scientist, based on vegetation and soil conditions.
Very good.
Jim, you got something?
I'd like to suggest that, not necessarily surveyed in, but approximate plot line, so we know what Mr. Cottrell's property is and what Mr.
Should be on there too. I thought we already had something like that, no?
We
Let's
don't
show the lot line.
So I have the maps, with the very recent satellite imagery that has the lot lines laid over it.
Oh,
Those aren't always.
That's what it was.
Yeah, those aren't always super accurate, but I've used it for everything through this job for different properties, and it's always been pretty accurate to me. So I mean, I could ask him to, especially given where we are with this right now and what we've discovered, like I could ask him to get the property lines marked out more, but I don't know if that's necessary, because it's only one line.
Well, I just wanna be sure that we're not trying to
Right.
enforce something that is actually on the other guy's property.
Actually, wasn't there something about the right of way by the road that it was getting a little close to there or something like that, or something by the road itself?
On the mapping, it looks like what's laid out as the road is actually part of his yard. Yeah, so like,
I'd like to see the property line. It doesn't affect the coop, I don't believe, but until we have an accurate property line, like the owner didn't.
so if something like the property line or even the wetland flagging makes him think like, I don't want the chicken coop's not worth it anymore, would you still wanna see those in absence of the coop, or this is only for the coop,
This is
right?
for the coop.
All
Okay,
about a coop.
okay,
Yep.
alright.
And for the audience, if I may.
Yeah,
Sure.
The difference in the coop, the chicken coop versus the others, it is in my mind, a non-stop pollution source that keeps producing 24/7, and you can't contain all of the feces. So the phosphorus, and then we'll get into the stream on a regular basis in some form, versus building a house and having a temporary, dirt zone that you do end up grassing or seeding later on. It's a lower impact in my mind.
Yeah, no,
Thanks.
fair description. All right, any other, I think holding kind of here.
So I think we want to see the property line and a 50 foot from the wetlands, well, see the wetland and 50 foot from there and 50 foot from this stream top of the bank on each side, right? We want to see both
you wanna see that marked out on the site,
on the map.
on the map, okay.
So obviously, we want to see the wetland edge
The wetland edge.
delineated, and what else?
And 50 foot from the top of the stream. Some of the commissioners were willing to use the stream
Oh, I
as
see
a
what you
50 foot line. Some are interested in using the wetland. We should see both.
Okay, yep, that's fair. Got it, okay.
And the property line, so we know we're enforcing.
Yeah, property line. Yes, sir.
Got it.
Got it.
So, okay, so let's go ahead and continue this to
July 24th.
24th, okay.
Yeah.
So, make a motion to continue the hearing for 445 North Street to the June 25th meeting.
July 25th.
Did I say June?
You did?
I'm sorry, July 25th,
So
sorry.
moved.
Second?
Second.
Okay, I'll take the rest of the commission's vote by roll call. Bob Seacard.
Aye.
Mike Seekey.
Aye.
Stephanie Quinlan.
Aye.
And Chuck Raymond.
Aye.
All right, motion passes. We will continue this on the next meeting.
All right. Good, all right, moving on, regular meeting. First up, certificate just so you folks may not have to sit here for the whole meeting and have your hearing be the last one. Anybody here for a particular item? Oh, you of U Street? Okay, sorry about that.
Yeah. Too bad.
Are you folks here for a particular item?
Probably Harwood.
Harwood and, the Hillary Road Lot A.
Okay, we'll just do a certificate of compliance, won't take long, and they're right up next, okay.
Yeah.
All right, so, first up is this, certificate of compliance for 148 Johnny Appleseed Lane, DEP file number 199-1123.
So this was for the construction of a single-family house and associated site work. I believe it required some, relatively extensive clearing on the lot, but that's all done. The house is up, the lawn is planted, driveway's in, silt fence and straw wattle have been up the whole time and have been doing their job. And they're pretty much done, everything's established, so I would recommend that we find a complete certificate of compliance for 199-1123.
All right, thank you, Nick. With that in mind, then I'll entertain a motion to find a complete certificate of compliance for 148 Johnny Appleseed Lane, DEP number 199-1123.
I'll make that motion.
Thank you, Stephanie. Is there a second? Go ahead.
My turn.
Thank you,
Bob.
Bob.
We'll get the rest of the commission's vote by roll call. Jim Chambers.
Aye.
Mike Seeke.
Aye.
Rich Gullick.
Aye.
And Chuck Raymond.
Aye.
All right, I'll get that out to him.
All right, good. All right, moving on then. Under extension permits, Hillary Road, Lot 7A. Remind us what's going on here, Nick.
All right, so they have an existing order of conditions that was approved back in 2019. Yeah, it was 2019 or early 2020, but it was before March because they have the COVID extension, so. They have an order of conditions for a single-family house and a septic field on Hillary Road. They came through recently with a request for an extension. I went out and reflagged some of the wetland line on there just to touch it up because it had been almost 3 years since it was originally flagged. A lot of them have fallen down, and we have these ongoing issues with Harwood Terrace right uphill, so there was a concern that might have changed a little bit. I went out there and reflagged it, but there were, there's a number of concerns around the site because of some of the ongoing issues and on abutting properties. Like I said, they have an existing order that is good until April of 2024. So based on DEP's recommendation, most people that come up for an extension normally don't apply until a month or two before the expiration date. In this case, we're like 6, 7, 8 months ahead of the expiration date. So DEP's recommendation is to deny this extension and ask them to, if it is still needed, to come back in like February or March and request another extension at that time.
Is that to maximize their time of the extension?
Oh, it would be an extension past the current end date anyway.
Whether they did it now or then.
Right.
And so why?
The purpose
what is
of-
the purpose of that?
The purpose of that is to avoid a situation where they get like a 3-year extension on an order when they already have a lot of time to complete it. They could conceivably do their work on the site right now without the extension. Like the extension is kind of getting ahead of themselves, I guess, a little bit. And DEP also recommended that that is the normal sort of series of events of how extensions normally go through, and especially given all.
Waiting till the end of the.
Yeah, waiting until like 2 months before it's set to expire.
Not 8.
And we're basically. Oh, and she also. Let's include this. Let me read these off because this is gonna be illuminating for us here. So she did also email me.
She being.
Mia, my point of contact with
Mayor McDonald.
Mia McDonald with Mass DEP, excuse me, yes. Mia McDonald with Mass DEP, who's the circuit rider for the central region. She sent me a list of conditions where extensions might not be granted. So I'll just read that email real quick. It's got 5 points. So an extension request may be denied by the commission and a new NOI required if, and cites 310 CMR 10.058B states some of those conditions would be no work has begun, except that there's unavoidable delays in permits. No new information not available at the time the order was issued indicates the interests of the Protection Act are not being protected by the order. Incomplete work has led to damage to the interests of the Act. There is a violation of the Order of Conditions Act or regulations, or the regulations have been amended and existing Order of Conditions no longer complies with the regulations. So
None of those seem to fit.
Those are reasons to deny.
To deny an extension.
Yeah, so
There's no
deny.
problem.
Doesn't seem to be,
So I would say that there's new information not available at the time of the order, which is coming in the form of the wetland scouring upslope.
Oh.
You know, I would say conditions have changed enough in a way that we should at least deny this for now and revisit it at a later time.
I agree.
That's my recommendation.
I agree.
Yeah, based on other stuff happening in the immediate area.
Yeah.
Okay, all right.
And
So they still have it.
they still have an order that's good.
Still have an order, right,
Legal.
yeah, exactly, yeah.
So if they want to, I mean, they could start to build. I just think it's a little premature given everything going on and the timeline of the existing order that we should deny at this time.
All right. Anybody have any questions?
Was, condition 1 also met here, no work has begun on the site?
No work has begun on the site and there.
Sorry, could you state your name?
Sorry, Nicholas Venti, 838 Wachusett Street.
Thank you.
Yeah, so one of the conditions that, the extension request may be denied is if no work has begun, except if there are unavoidable delays in getting other permits.
Chuck, did we get his name and address?
Yeah, he just
Yeah.
said it, yep. Yep.
Nick Venti, 838 Wachusett Street.
So that is my recommendation.
Okay. All right, then I'll entertain a motion to,
Is there any, before you do, is there anything to ask from somebody in the audience?
oh, yeah, thank you, yeah, I appreciate that, yeah. So, sir, do you have anything else?
No.
No? Anybody else have any questions, comments?
No, that was helpful.
Okay, all right, good. Thank you, Rich, appreciate that. Yes, Mike?
I'm just curious, Wachusett Street's quite a ways from Hillary. What's the,
I can tell, I can tell you.
Hold on. I don't know if he owes us an explanation.
no, he doesn't, I was just curious.
No, so
I have no personal interest in this property, I was just curious as to the,
Okay.
Okay.
We met
as
the gentleman on the hike this weekend with Nicholas.
Ah.
You joined us on the hike, sir.
That's right.
Yes, and he was invited to the meeting as an interested citizen, we're delighted to see him.
Exactly.
We are. Thank
Wonderful.
you for coming.
Good. And sir, you did not owe us an explanation there, so. All right, so I'll go ahead and entertain a motion to deny the extension permit for Hillary Road, lot 7A, at this time. I don't need to read a longer motion, do I?
No, deny it.
Yeah, okay.
I'd like to make that.
Thank you.
And I'll second.
Thank you, Michael.
Okay, I'll take the rest of the commission's vote by roll call. Jim Chambers.
Aye.
Stephanie Quinlan.
Aye.
Richard Gullick.
I don't know.
Whatever you want.
I'll
Call your lawyer.
vote aye.
Okay.
Being a matter is, I would vote
Don't gotta go
neutral
there.
if I can.
You can abstain.
I'll abstain.
Okay.
And
one
I'm
abstain.
torn.
Okay, so 4 ayes, 1 abstaining, and Chuck Raymond.
Wishy-washy vice chairman.
That's a first.
That's healthy.
He's never been wishy or washy.
So we have 5 ayes, 0 nays, and 1 abstaining. So the order or the extension permit is denied at this time.
Fair enough.
I was expecting. From a opinion from our vice chairman. Rich,
I-
I'm just giving you a hard time, you're all right.
No trouble, I could have given one and just.
That's okay. All right, moving on, communications. The Harwood Terrace Mitigation Consultants, just to let folks know, the last hearing, we had a couple of quotes from outside consultants to help us figure out the stormwater situation at Harwood Terrace and whether it was in compliance with their plans. But based on the quotes we got back, it was obvious that they were giving us quotes based on different information that they had received from other people. So we went back to them, Nick sent them an email asking them to give us a quote based on that specific scope of services. So now, we've gotten those, and so now we're here to discuss those. And if you have any comments, we'll get some folks in a second.
All right, yeah, so we'll leave it open to discussion. If y'all should have reviewed the requests at this time, or the quotes by this time, so what do we think?
I still think, was it Bobreck, and what was the other one, the other name?
Jacobs.
Jacobs.
Yeah.
I still, Dr. Jacobs, correct?
Yep, Dr. Bruce Jacobs.
So I still, they were both very good quotes. I still think that Dr. Jacobs one, because this has to do with Harwood Terrace and nothing else, he still went too far into the Hillary Road aspect of this, and that's not what we asked him to do. So based on that, I preferred Mr. Bobreck's quote because he answered the mail better than Dr. Jacobs did.
Okay.
Those are my thoughts. Anyone else have any thoughts, comments?
I'll go next.
Richard?
I agree with you on that, from Bobreck's firm that does a fair amount of
So, in our eyes, the Harwood Terrace issue is separate from the larger area-wide drainage down on Hillary Road in that area. So we're trying to keep them separate, because this is just about whether the work at Harwood was in compliance, or is in compliance so far with their plans. So go ahead.
Thank you for that. And so in line with Bobreck's, their first proposal, I think, hit it spot on. The second one, I wasn't as happy as I was at first. Okay, well, they gave us two parts there, to do an evaluation and then a design with actual computer-aided design and HydroCAD analysis and conceptual layouts. So we could have grabbed task one at $5,500 and gotten the evaluation, which I thought was a fair price. Given some maybe conceptual things, and get some meat to the recommendations with the design work that they had proposed. That design part got taken out of this now, so it dropped from 10,000 down to 9, but doesn't quite do as much. If we recommend Bobreck, Nick could go and renegotiate and consider the original two-part and so on. Because if they say, well, there's no real impact from what happened, why have a design in that? So it's nice to have two parts. In terms of the other one, the person is qualified.
Right.
I have a similar PhD in subsurface transport, water transport. And when I and a couple of the other commissioners went to the one house, Mrs. Moses, and talked to her, it was clear that water was coming in through a pipe in the basement, which is due to overflowing of water in that street, which has been happening for years. That kind of overflow in the street, that she hadn't had that much water coming in. But I don't associate that necessarily with the work up above. Back on May 9th, if I go back to the minutes, one of the city councilors was here and said that the city would go and hire an engineer to look at this. And I could read that if you need it. I think you remember that.
Yeah.
And I'm wondering what the status is of that. And I'm a little hesitant, or a lot hesitant, on Dr. Jacobs' proposal, because it seems to be going in that direction.
Yeah.
And I think the city could go and, if they're interested in, the city council can hire somebody to look at what's happening in that street as a whole, while we go and look at this specifically, the Harwood Terrace. So I would, and plus it's up to 19,000 now for Dr. Jacobs.
17, I think, isn't it?
It was 17.
It was 17, I misspoke, my apologies. Dr. Jacobs, 17.
It was quite a bit higher.
And I do bids like this pretty regularly, and I found the 24 hours to review the documents to be too long and too expensive. So I would definitely prefer to negotiate with Bobreck.
Okay.
Thank you for my time.
You're welcome. Anybody else?
Yeah, I've got a kind of a strong opinion.
You have opinions on that, huh?
I looked at, and I looked at both proposals, and I looked at both websites. And personally, I think, Jacobs has a better scope of work listed in his resume, far better
In his resume?
Yeah, in his biography, whatever you wanna call it.
Oh,
His scope of work, including working for the city of
That's not,
Pittsburgh.
if I may, that's not scope of work, that is just
Work
his
product.
history.
His
product,
work
yes.
product,
There
that's
you
what I
go.
was trying to say.
Okay, scope
I think
of
his
work.
work product, I look at Bobrek and I don't see a lot there. To tell you the truth, he's a civil engineer, probably a really smart person. And I don't like the price discrepancy, that bothers me a lot. I would like to save the city money, but I think this is one where we can't err on the side of financial output. We've got to look at the person's background, how much relevant work they've done for this particular case, and choose the right person. And I think that Jacobs has much more experience, in my mind, my humble mind.
Fair enough. All set? Anything else? Okay.
I couldn't read it on the,
You could get it on the drive.
can I have a paper copy?
Yeah, I have paper copies if you'd like to see them.
Sorry about that, Joe. Mine said the same thing, I don't know what.
Well, I just downloaded it to Adobe and it was
Yeah,
fine.
but you should be able to read it, just,
I think it's
yeah,
I
it
think
shouldn't
it's
be a
Apple, I
puzzle.
don't know if that's an iPhone.
Yeah.
No, I had to do it, I'll put it down.
I was able to
Stephanie,
read.
Bob?
Okay.
Thoughts?
Yeah, and I seen the discrepancy too. I kinda agree with both of you guys, in your analogies of what I seen too, you know. It looked much more professional, presented very well, a good scope of work, maybe not right on what we were asking for, the elaboration, but, and the price reflected it, so I'm going like, well, we gotta go back and have them do this again.
You know, I think that I don't like the preconceived notions at all.
They're there,
They're there,
clear in there.
they're there.
It goes
I don't
right back
like
to what we
those
told
at
them
all.
not to go to.
But I like the work product that he has produced, and including for some of the cities, and I think if all of that stuff pans out, he's got a good, solid.
Did you review that work product?
I
only saw
did
that it
not.
was listed.
I did not.
You just see the list of projects.
See the list of projects, and no list of projects on the other side. A civil engineer who's a fairly young person, new, and that has nothing to do with it, but,
But Bobrex?
Yeah,
There's
yeah.
8 offices, right?
Huh?
There's 8 offices, including one in Princeton, with that firm.
Princeton, New Jersey?
No, Princeton,
Princeton, Mass.
I think it's Princeton, Mass.
well, isn't he like the president?
I don't know what his position is.
Yeah,
But
I just have something to inform the rest of the committee members, that I've been up there several times during stormwater conditions now.
Good.
And Josh shows up shortly after I arrive.
game cameras.
Nice.
Yeah, but before I got to the site even, they were towing away a BMW on West Street because it went through the water at a high level and, it stalled out. So I made specific note of the complete semicircle of Hillary Drive, how the water was flowing into them at that time, and were they taking it? Was it being overcome or not? And none of the sailors did. They were taking that water just fine.
What was the drains?
The drainage from the road coming off the land and,
Okay.
wherever driveways or how it skirted across.
Nick, do we know, when you're gonna elucidate for us, do we know what impacts to any of those houses? And this is outside of, I'll save that. I'll save that for after this discussion.
Okay.
Before I just stopped myself, we're still talking about the 2 quotes. Jim?
I'd like to express my concern about Jacob's pointed scope of work. It's Mr. Bedanza, in his mind, went looking for a consultant. But he filled the consultant's head with conjecture, stuff that cannot be proven. And that's what they're trying to prove now. And we're concerned about the scouring effect from the stormwater that made. But we also walked the street, and at that time, every single drain was overflowing, and the water was actually flowing across the road. And
Yeah, we're not trying to solve that problem, we're trying to.
I know we're not trying to solve that, but that's That's what Mr. Jacobs is
Yeah,
trying to
that's
solve
where
that
that
problem.
goes. It misdirects and it's overpriced. And the qualifications are just not that much different. You also already have a PhD in here on this commission with water flow.
Yeah, but we don't hold that against you.
Thank you. But seriously, I mean, it's not what I do regularly, and I'm not really a stormwater guy, but the other firm is a stormwater firm, and I thought the price was much better.
Well, the price is much better, but I don't think we're here to save money. I think we're here to get the best solution for the problem.
And I think that involves getting somebody who's not treating this as though it's Hillary Road project. And that's what Dr. Jacobs seems to be doing with this, twice now. Even
I don't
after,
disagree with you.
because if in the first time, in my opinion, that one should not have been brought to us because it addressed a totally different question. It was brought to us to address Ms. Moses's house.
Right.
Specifically, where this commission had already determined that that water was coming in the pipe.
Mhm.
So he was given a second chance that I didn't think was necessarily deserved. We could have accepted the first one already. And came back with a much higher price, and it's still misdirected. So no, that would be for me. And,
All right. Stephanie, do you have anything? And no is a perfectly acceptable answer.
Nothing that hasn't already been said.
Thank you. That's good. I love that answer.
You're
That's one of my
welcome.
favorite answers. Thank you. All right, so, if nobody else in the commission has any thoughts, we'll leave it at that. Anybody in the audience have any thoughts or questions or anything? If so, please state your name and address.
Certainly.
Ma'am.
My name is Sue Shalafuz, I'm a city councilor
Hmm?
in Leominster, I live in that neighborhood.
And your address, please?
Oh, 900 West.
Thank you.
900 West. So, just to back up a little bit, somebody had mentioned earlier about city councilors hiring an engineer. We don't hire engineers. What we do is we represent people throughout the city and we help them solve problems or find the right resources or point them in the right direction. That's what we do. We basically are a legislative body. As Council Frieder, I think, can attest, we pass the ordinances and, try to, work with all of our constituents. So when this problem, which has been ongoing for a very long time, it's getting worse.
Now, when you say this, what do you mean by this problem? Just to make sure we know what you're talking about.
I am talking about the broader issue of drainage in that area.
Yeah, okay.
Okay, so that problem has existed for a long time. It has continued to, from my perspective, get worse
Mhm.
and worse. To your point about walking around Hillary Road, I think Jim's point, today, from the corner of Hillary Road and west, there's basically a lake. And that has happened on a smaller scale in the past. However, it dissipates and it goes away. It discharges back, I guess, into Minnesota Brook or whatever. That was not the case today. That water is still standing. Did not diminish. It didn't look like to me that it receded at all. So, but I understand what you're doing here. So my point is that the city council, we don't hire lawyers. What we do is when we hear from constituents, like Mrs. Moses, for example, we, talk amongst ourselves, see if there's anything that we can do in terms of the ordinances that we have control over. And we bring the problem to the mayor because the mayor is the chief executive person in the city and he's the person, that can commit funds and hire, a consultant. So that's what happened in this situation. I raise the issue all the time with the mayor. I believe Councilor Bediza has as well, I think Councilor Angelini, because they both live in the neighborhood. Councilor Angelini, Councilor Bediza represents that part of the city. Councilor Angelini is across the street. So he knows a lot about Minnesota Brook and the water and how it flows in and out of there. So, from my perspective, what I try to do is, find the people with the expertise. I'm really very glad to hear, because the city is hiring, the city, not the city council, but the city, meaning the mayor, has given this Concom, I would imagine, authority and the financing to hire a consultant. Do I have that right, or?
So, not really. So we're hiring this consultant from the Wetland Fund, which is the money that we receive through filing fees, like the municipal share of filing fees for NOIs, things like that.
Okay.
That's been building up in our fund for a while. We have a lot of money available to that.
Yeah,
So
I've been on the Concom for over 3 years now. I don't recall spending money on an outside consultant at all, so.
Ever? No,
Yeah.
I don't.
No, not in those 3 years.
And so that money is set aside specifically for the commission to dispense in enforcing the Wetland Protection Act.
Okay.
Specifically the Wetland Protection Act. Because again, that fund is built from filing fees like through NOIs, which is the structures all through the Wetland Protection Act. So we are able to hire a consultant through there because we observed a violation coming off of the site, which in the form of scouring from water leaving the site either too quickly or too great a velocity, that it ended up causing scouring in a wetland down slope.
At one of the houses.
It was above 50 Hillary, but I believe it was still, the scouring that we observed was on it was a little on 50, it was a little on Harwood Terrace, on his property as well. The important part was it was in a wetland downstream from his work.
Right.
So that's where we were able to qualify it as a violation because it was an unpermitted alteration to the wetland.
Okay.
So because there was this unpermitted alteration, there's a presumption that there was conditions that changed from how the site was before. And the one big thing that's changed is that the work going on the site is happening whereas it wasn't happening before. So we're hiring a consultant to review what was presented to us in the original NOI, review the order that we had, and review the site as it is to see if it was in compliance in the first place, if there was something that we should have done that we can condition now, say like you gotta put in these mitigations. And we have agreed to pay for that out of the wetland fund in exchange for bringing whatever our findings are to the consultant and asking him to pay for whatever recommendations that we receive from the consultant.
To the applicant, bring it to the applicant.
Bring it to the applicant,
And
yes.
our engineer, right?
Yeah.
Have the engineer present their findings to the applicant.
Right. Present to us and then
And
say
then
you need to either adopt this or an equivalent mitigation.
Yeah, like the consultant, I'm just conjecturing here, he may find, you know what, the plans put together by the engineer in the first place were insufficient to handle the runoff. I'm just making this up. So he would present that and then the applicant would see that and have a chance to amend their drainage plan. I mean, I'm just making it up, but that's something that could happen.
Our desire to hire an engineering consultant to review the engineering consultant's work that was already done is focused on this violation that occurred at 50.
Right. No, in Harwood Terrace.
And well, on Harwood Terrace that broke over the edge into the house down at 550.
Okay, I see what you mean.
We're not looking at Ms. Moses's house
Right,
because we determined that's not related to what was done up the hill. In that sense, so we still think that the city or someone, and it was mentioned by one of the councilors that the city would look into hiring somebody, so I don't know where that came. Somewhere's in the minutes, I couldn't find it.
Yeah, I do recall when they were standing here.
If I could say, I think I remember the part that you're referencing from the minutes in that, and I think he was implying like he would support the city hiring an engineer or someone through us.
That was not my
That may
impression.
be the case, but the letter from Mr. Jacobs said, the first letter said, in discussion with Mr. Bonanza, I had discovered the following information about Hillary.
Yeah.
And it was all about Hillary. The last thing he was concerned about was what was happening up the hill, and we really
What
don't.
we're trying to address.
We
There's
don't
two
have.
issues in our map.
Absolutely, no, I understand that.
We don't have authority over actually the storm system down on the street because that's a DPW issue. That storm drain, in my opinion, as an engineer, is not doing the work. There may be clogs in it, it may not be big, the pipe may not be big enough for how much water is coming in there. And that is definitely a DPW city issue.
Correct.
But the good news
Yes.
is that you guys are hiring an expert to look at the job that they proposed they were going to do on Harwood.
Yep, right.
And that person is going to correlate that proposal with what actually was done and see if there are any problems.
Correct.
See if there are any
Absolutely.
differences. That's very important.
Yeah.
I've gone up there myself numerous times when we've had rain events. And there were pipes just sticking out of the bank, the banking that leads up to the road, right? So when you go up to Harwood and you proceed along, I think it's the driveway, on the left-hand side, there's a banking, right, that was constructed. And there were big pipes, not big pipes,
Yes.
but pipes. But water was coming out at a really rapid pace.
Right.
So, that to me doesn't seem right. I mean, it seems like it should be, draining someplace else. There should be some kind of structure in place to route that water.
Beforehand, it was coming right down chutes and
But-
eroding things.
Right up the hill over
There
the
might have been
driveway.
more of them than the number of pipes, and that's one of the things that will be looked at. Maybe
Right.
they needed more pipes, maybe it's not dispersed.
Yeah.
We've also already taken action, because during one of the visits, it was observed that there were some trees that had blocked some of the flow path, and so the water had gotten over the bank from that drainage ditch and gotten down into 50, into that property. But you'll notice every house along there, most of them all have drainages.
Oh,
To move that water past their house, and you're draining on each side of them, that water keeps coming.
And they didn't put those in after the construction started up on Harwich.
No, those have been with
That have been there a long time.
So we had actually had the, if I may, and I think you'll feel better about this, we had the applicant moved so the tree out of the way and straighten some of that up, and the idea was, well, now let's see if we have that overflow, that scouring now after that action has been taken. We didn't necessarily need to move forward with getting this, but given the overall concerns, we feel it's an appropriate move.
Yeah. We're trying to do what we can to address what we can,
Right.
with the recognition that we're not gonna fix the entire issue on Hillary.
No, but you'll answer a lot of questions.
Absolutely.
And if everything has
Hopefully.
been done according to plan, that's a relief
Yep.
for me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, thank
Well,
you.
a different concern. What was the original plan then?
Yeah, was the plan good
Yeah.
enough? That's what we wanna know.
Yeah.
Not just did they implement the plan,
Well, can you,
Or
I
was
mean,
it
your jurisdiction
appropriate?
over that, if the plan wasn't appropriate
Yeah.
enough.
Oh, yeah.
And was,
Absolutely, yeah, we did.
So it was approved, so they had an original plan that may not be sufficient to handle that.
Yeah.
Possible.
So it's,
It's possible.
I've been told it's an lesson until situation, so we might approve a plan that's presented to us, and we think, oh, this is fine, this is perfect, and then once that's actually implemented, if the reality is something different, then we can come back and say, this isn't sufficient.
You can add
Yeah.
further mitigation.
and there's
We can take appropriate actions, I'll leave it at that.
And there's two aspects to the standard, so to speak. They have design, and they meet that design requirement, which is the order of conditions. And then there's a performance standard, meaning you can't have that water flow over and into my yard, which is written in the city stormwater ordinance, something similar. And that's what one of the counselors had quoted was a violation. So it violated on a performance standard, in effect. So now we want to hire an engineer to confirm the design standard was met, and was it appropriate and good enough?
Wasn't adequate. Okay.
That's what we hope to learn.
Okay, all right. Well, I appreciate that, thank you.
Yeah,
Thank you.
You know, very much.
You all set?
Yeah,
Thank you
Very
for
much,
coming.
I'm
Counselor.
clear on what's going.
Good.
All right.
Thank you.
Anybody else? Yeah.
No, I think
No,
it's,
I just want to clarify the point that Councilor Calhoun has ever brought up. City council has no authority to hire anybody.
I'm
No, no,
glad to
no,
know
no,
that.
no.
I want to know the progress of it, so I won't ask.
No, I think Sue and Claire, I think the good thing that I guess has happened here is that we have brought attention through this project that
Right.
there is a bigger issue in that area, and I think now, with, several other, Mr. Bonanza and Peter Angelini getting in on one of our meetings, that it's a big concern because it's been a big problem for a long time.
It's getting worse.
I was there last night at 7:00, and I was gonna say it was a lake, but it was the biggest I've ever seen it.
That's-
In the sewer in the middle of the road, it was geysing out of it.
Yeah.
And if you're talking hours after the storm,
sewer.
if you're talking hours
Yeah,
after
I hope
that,
so.
if you're talking hours after that storm has stopped and it's still there, it has nothing to do with what's done on Harvard, because that water's already down. I mean, all the water's just down, it's just got no place to go.
Yeah, well,
And I think all of that frustration of those years of that, and now whatever the difference is this year that's created more, has just really brought this in.
All right, so let's, if we can, let's go ahead and get back to the original intent of this.
Yeah.
So I assume we should then take votes on which one of these quotes, or which one of these people we should engage with negotiation.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well put.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, so I'll make the first motion. I'll make a motion based on what I'm hearing here, to engage with Mr. Bobreck, to negotiate a scope of work and final quote for the work associated with the Harwood Terrace mitigation consulting.
I would be glad to make that motion.
All right, is there a second?
So,
Thank you, Jim.
Let me get this. So Rich, 1, Jim, 2. I'll take the rest of the commission's vote by roll call. Stephanie Quinlan.
Aye.
Bob Seacard.
Aye.
Mike Seeking.
I'll be nay.
Okay. Mike is a nay. And Chuck Raymond.
I vote aye.
Okay, so that's 5-0, and we have selected
5-1.
5-1.
5-1. Excuse me. You're just a big zero, Mike. We
No,
got
not the first time I've heard it.
we got
I went
five.
a totally different direction than what I thought.
We got a 5-1 for Bobrick. So I will talk to the purchasing agent tomorrow and get that initiated.
Good, thank you.
Please consider looking through and requesting more of the first one than the second one. Because of the two-part
Right,
Yeah.
right. Yeah,
section on it.
that's certainly appropriate.
But I'd be glad to talk to them if you so want.
Yeah,
Because I'm from the commission.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Since
All
I
right,
supported it the most.
all right, moving on then, under communications. The North National River Stabilization Work beginning, DEP file number 199-1152. In case, I forget who was on the commission at the time, but I know I was on the commission, I'd been here for about a year or so.
Thank you, ladies.
Yeah, good night, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Claire?
That there was.
Claire?
Oh.
Did you leave something?
That's not mine.
Well,
Oh,
That was there.
Do-
That was there.
do you want it?
I think it's on electronic.
So there's a slope stability issue just downstream from the wastewater treatment plant off of the connector.
Yeah.
So,
I remember that.
and work hasn't started yet. They got the order conditions. They wanna start work now. I just noticed on the way here, a bunch of equipment out on the side of the road.
Yep.
So people may start asking questions, so Nick, you wanna fill it in?
Yeah, so exactly like Chuck was saying, this came out a little more than a year ago before I came on. I think it was maybe when Mark was the acting
It could be,
agent.
yeah. Well, I think it started with Angela, yeah. It started with Angela.
One of Angela's last,
Yeah.
before she left.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's on the connector runs right along like the outside bend of the Natural River. So on those outside bends, that's where the river erodes away.
Yeah.
And there's a sewer pipe that runs like right there. So if it is just left to go, that's like a major sewer line. And I've heard it described as catastrophic if that was to be eroded away, and it would be
Stormwater, not
it would be a real serious problem. Yeah, it's what?
Stormwater, not sewer.
No, there's a sewer line.
storm
Yeah.
sewer?
No, this is the wastewater line, isn't it, from the plant?
Yeah,
To the plant.
yeah.
It goes along on the riverbank?
Yeah, these happen all the time.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Catastrophic is
The
exactly.
riverbank's been already back.
It's really
It's a big deal, yeah.
Treated
FEMA
water.
is aware of the
Yeah.
situation, yeah, it would be a big deal.
Or treated
Oh,
water.
yeah.
So, as a part of that, we permitted a bank stabilization
Either way.
project to shore up some of that and put some riprap along the edges. And yeah, basically, I won't bore you with the details, but I was contacted by the contractors doing that work. I think it's Carnes. They're out of New Hampshire. But yeah, they're out there this week. They got a bunch of machines. They're going to start clearing some trees to begin the work, and they're getting underway.
So if anybody knows you, that knows you're on the Concom and they ask you questions, it's work it's fully permitted, they've been in front of us, they've got their permits and everything.
Yep.
They're ready to go, and the impact of, if they didn't do this work, will be far worse than the short period of time that they're gonna be working on the slope of the river.
It'll
Absolutely.
be a major disaster.
There's a raw sewage pipe going along there, correct?
Yep.
Leading to the plant.
Yep.
And I believe the outflow from the plant's probably a little upflow, closer to the plant. This is a little bit downflow from the
Yeah.
plant, so I figure it's coming into it.
Just can't imagine where that's coming from, because that's a dump, yeah.
Yeah.
Where would it come
I think
from?
it's coming from that neighborhood up Mechanic Street.
Why would they put it over a dump instead of going down Mechanic Street right to the station?
Well,
Anyway,
I don't-
if it's there, it's there.
They built the connector right through the dump too, so.
Okay.
All right, so that's just FYI, in case you get any questions. Moving on, nothing under enforcement, nothing under emergency certifications, nothing under new business, or is there? Nope.
Nope.
Under old business, Leominster Brook E. coli. Again, we've talked about this several times. Nick just has some new information.
Yeah, so I was working with Sean Como from DPW. He's kind of heading off this investigation from their side. He had been doing some testing along Manusnak Brook and basically narrowed down the source of the E. coli spike to right around what is 85 Water Street. It's the one building. If you follow the Manusnak down its course, at one point it kind of flows under this big parking area, and then right after that, daylights again before flowing underneath a building that straddles both sides of the bank. That building that goes over the brook is 85 Water Street. And DPW wanted to get access to the building, underneath the building, to do some more testing and narrow stuff down more. But they didn't have a contact for the owner. I was able to track down the owner. I got in touch with his sister, who got me in touch with him. I just talked to him today, and he's more than willing to do whatever he can to help us out and give DPW access to whatever they need to. So I got him in touch with Sean, but I got a message back from Sean saying that he's out for the rest of the week. So that's the status of it right now. Probably won't get anywhere newer within the next couple of days, but we have access to it, so hopefully we'll be able to pinpoint that source.
Do you know what's in that building that's straddling?
It's an old industrial building.
I mean, most of those are inactive.
The signs,
There's-
mentioned, the sign says something about furniture.
There's like a mattress, a warehouse or something in there.
Tourist cook is in there too, right?
Yeah.
Some kind of a cook, and then some sort of, the owner is Tony Mazzaferro, his sister, who I got in touch with actually, I get the impression she owns one of the buildings out of there. It's like a hair something.
Okay.
Can't really remember, but there's a couple of little businesses through there. But it's an old,
It just doesn't seem like there's a lot of activity there,
Yeah.
you know, in the.
Well, it may not be them, but it's another data point.
It could be some
Might
old,
be this might be a broken bathroom pipe.
yeah, that just happens to.
Anybody look on the floor?
Yeah.
So in relation to the data, how far upstream above that building and downstream were the two samples taken before and after? Do you know how far and what the concentrations E. coli were?
I don't know the distance, but he's taken them from, there's that railroad bridge that.
Can you share a map of the data or get that from the commission?
Yeah. Well, he's shared some test results with me, and he knows where they've been taken, so I can get that from him and send it off.
A couple of data points. So the June sampling that I did in Manusnak Brook downstream, just downstream from there, right by Mechanic Street. In May, the E. coli results were in the range of 670 units, and in June it was 700 something units. Again, screaming red.
And what was it upstream of this?
I don't know. It was the information I have from the Watershed Association.
It was still elevated, but not as high by that railroad bridge, and then up further where it's like the Manusnak Brook Walk or whatever. That's
Right,
behind.
Brady's.
Yeah, about up there. He tested and it was like normal levels up there.
I'd be curious to see it. We keep talking about it.
Yeah, no, right, yeah. Sir, do you have anything? And again, name and address, please.
Nick Venti, 838 Washington Street.
Yeah.
I was curious about Rich's question too, about the spatial resolution, because Nick had said that access, he had effectively alluded to the idea that the access to the Leominster Brook was poor, surrounding.
Yeah, just in that one particular area because the building straddles it, so we need access to the building to get in there.
Both upstream, downstream, there
Right.
is no access.
No, they can test up and down. It's just now that they think they found it, now we got to get in to find
Oh, okay.
where's the broken pipe.
Where's the
if
root
there's a
cause?
broken
Yeah,
pipe.
what's the root cause?
Yeah,
They
they
can do
just,
dye testing and dump a dye down the toilets and see if it gets into the river,
right.
things like that.
So the spatial resolution is sufficient
Well, and
To
also
know.
some,
to go, to investigate further with this site?
Yeah, it's pointing to somewhere in that area.
right. We, the National Watershed Association, a couple years ago, had done some DNA testing. I think it was right at the beginning of COVID. Some DNA testing, to see what species E. coli, was it from humans? Was it from dogs? Was it from cattle? And virtually all of it was human.
Thank God there's no
Chairman
cattle.
Chuck actually takes the samples for the
Yeah,
volunteer.
I'm
He does
a
this.
volunteer water quality sample for the National Watershed Association, and that, right there by where Mechanic Street and Water Street meet, I take a sample there every month from April through October. And E. coli is, in May, I think every sampling round each month, the association has, 20 or 25 sampling points all around the National watershed, around Groton. That was the only spot that was red. In other words, in the
Yeah, a spike like that in the
Yeah.
spring,
Ma'am.
I'm sorry, I don't know if this hasn't happened before yet, usually I can wait in between, but I have to use the restroom
go.
so bad.
Go.
Can I just walk away in the middle of the discussion?
Special dispensation, ma'am, yes,
Thank
help
you.
yourself. Yeah. We have no problems with that whatsoever.
We need to hold a vote.
I'll be back in.
Should we take a vote for this?
So moved.
5-0.
I thought I could wait for the end of the meeting.
Good try.
Almost there,
Let's go. We're almost there.
Good try.
So yeah, that's
just an update. Yeah.
that's basically the update.
And I'll be sampling again this weekend, so.
Yeah.
I'll tell you how high the sampling is, the data is at that point.
In the interest of time, I guess if you don't mind, we can just get wetland ordinance stuff out of the way. I don't have any new updates for that unless anyone else does.
Yeah, then there really no progress on the ordinance. It's kind of, I think once we are able to get into it, we'll make some progress. We're having a tough time getting into it.
Right, and I think that once we get to Harwood Terrace,
Yeah.
that's gonna be a.
Yeah, it'll free up
stone.
a lot of my time.
Yeah.
Good point, Jim.
Yeah.
Stepping stone a couple ways.
Yeah.
Time and
Lessons.
and as well as that appeal.
Yeah, right. Do you have any other questions about the E. coli in the brook? No? Okay, so I'll make sure.
Thanks for your work there.
You're welcome.
And well, I guess we could go on to minutes, yeah, because
Yeah.
shouldn't
See,
necessarily.
nothing in the budget.
Yeah.
So minutes, I looked at them all, I wasn't at the June 13th one. So I
Even though you were listed.
Yeah, maybe.
I said, hey, I wasn't at this one.
We'll do one at, yeah, let's go one at a time here.
Yeah, so maybe we'll handle May 9th first.
I was okay with the edits that were in. I caught a couple of the ones you had made on my request.
Yep.
So I guess I was fine there.
Yeah, I made a handful of comments, nothing substantive.
Was there any questions I'd left you to clarify? Was there one in that one?
Any other questions?
Did you get a chance to look at those? Like put notes today? I called you. Go look at them in minutes, or we got too diverted.
I think I got diverted, yeah.
I had a
That was for
couple
May
of
9th?
ones in these, well, that's what I'm asking, which I had them in two of them.
Oh,
Little
okay.
things for Nick to clarify.
Okay.
He could just say, we communicated with somebody, why?
Talking about minutes.
Okay, no, I saw I haven't addressed them, but I should be able to go in there and add
and we
like
can
the
still
specific
vote.
dates, yeah, I can address them.
I asked for more detail in a couple of spots.
No, that's perfectly fine. Do you want to wait to vote on that, or?
No.
Okay, all right.
I'd like to approve them
Okay,
with him completing the changes that have been edited in.
okay, so this is just May 9th right now.
Yes.
Okay, so I'll make a motion to approve the minutes as given to us and amended, given to us by the agent and amended as we all may have, on the drive, for the minutes from May 9th, 2023.
I will make the motion for May 9th. Approve
Thank you,
those.
second. Thank you, Michael.
Okay, take the rest of the commission's vote by roll call. Jim Chambers.
Aye.
Stephanie Quinlan.
Aye.
Bob Seacard. Aye. And Chuck Raymond.
Aye.
Alright, that's 6-0. And
All right, and,
All of them were here on that meeting. Good.
yes.
Okay, yes, thank you for
Yes.
double check, I was just gonna.
And for June 13th, I was at one, so I indicated, even though the minutes showed that I was there, I indicated in the minutes that I was not there.
Yeah, we did
So I will
that.
abstain from this vote.
Okay.
You were there though, is that correct, Stephanie?
No.
She was
Oh,
not.
you were also
for
not there,
13th.
Oh, you must have printed that out.
I don't,
before.
yeah, I copy and paste the minutes and then I edit them from there, but I
I would
forgot
do it the same way.
Yeah. I just forgot to double check it. Yeah, so
June 13th.
Rich, Jim, Mike, Bob, you're all there.
Kev was there.
What's that?
That's what it is. Ken Ridlin was there.
Okay.
Stephanie's name goes out. Chuck's was already taken out.
Yeah.
And Ken Ridlin was here.
So the four of you can vote, okay?
It was me, Ken, Jim, Bob, and Mike.
So, all right,
So we're down 4 of us, yes.
yeah. All right, so then entertain a motion to accept the minutes for June 13th, 2023 as posted on the drive by the agent and amended by the various commissioners.
So we,
Second. Thank you, Jim. Thank you, Bob.
Okay. Get those. Jim 1, Bob 2. Take the rest of the commission's vote by roll call. Mike Seeke.
Aye.
Stephanie Quinlan.
Aye.
Okay, you weren't there. Excuse me.
I wasn't there.
All right, let's start over. So we got Jim first, Bob second. Richard Gullick.
Wait, you're saying Mike wasn't there June 13th?
I'm always here.
Mike was there.
Oh, no, yeah, you were. Okay, so never.
So Stephanie and I weren't there.
Yeah, no.
Yes, so we got Jim, we got Bob, Mike Seeke.
Aye.
Aye. Richard Gullick. Aye. So we got 4, 2 abstaining, 0 nays.
Okay.
All right.
All right, good, thank you. Moving on to June 27th, 2023. Before I make a motion, any comments, questions?
Minor stuff. Yeah, I put in a few changes,
Yeah.
including things that straightened out what I had said, or so I thought. But I'm good with it.
Okay. Good, all right, then I'll entertain a motion to accept the minutes for June 27th, 2023 as posted on the drive by the agent and commented on by the various commissioners.
I'll make that motion.
Thank you, Mike.
Okay.
Is there a second?
second,
Thank you, Jim.
Thank you, Jim. I'll take the rest of the commission's vote by roll call. Bob was not there. Stephanie Quinlan.
Aye.
And Richard Gullick.
Aye.
And Chuck Raymond.
Aye.
All right, so we got 5 yeas, 1 abstaining, 2 nays.
All right, good. All right,
That's accepted.
moving on to commissioner news, we have a couple items. One is, we hopefully have some good news about the proposed Pierce Street subdivision
Yeah,
that we were all upset about, but nothing we can do about it. Go ahead, Nick.
Yeah, so we have some tentatively good news. So we had all thought, all the departments, everyone at City Hall thought, the subdivision that was approved, that we approved, was all set to go through. The land there had previously been appraised for about $800,000. With the subdivision, it was appraised at like 1.2 million, something like that. It was more, so we were figuring, they're gonna wanna do with the subdivision. Late last Friday, Wendy Weeks from the mayor's office, who's in attendance here, she got an email or call from the property owners stating that they would potentially like to sell it to the city. So to make that a possibility, if that's what they so choose, where the city would like to apply for a land grant, which would supply us with $500,000 towards the purchase of towards the purchase of the parcel, and the city is in agreement to pay the difference, which would be about like $300,000. So we're just going to be voting to show our approval, I hope. Let me get the exact wording out. I would like us to hold a vote to allow the city to apply for the local acquisitions for natural diversity or land grant through the state Executive Office of Energy and Environmental Affairs for $500,000 towards the purchase price of the Pierce Street property. So.
All right, so before I entertain a motion, are there any questions?
Yeah,
Comments,
what are our involvement responsibilities?
We're just showing our approval, right? We're just voicing our approval that we would like to have.
There's a line for the chairman to sign.
Is this approval or is this
So this is
support?
only allowing us to apply for the grant. They like to see the Conservation Commission is in support of.
In support of, that's the word I'm
And
looking
then,
for.
yes, and then once the, if we're lucky enough to get the grant, then, we'll enter into negotiations. The Conservation Commission will eventually hold the conservation restriction. But that's a long way off. So this is just to apply for the grant.
That would have always been the condition anyway, even if the city had gotten land in the first place, that was always a condition anyway.
Yeah, that we would
Right.
And may I ask, are we doing, I'm all for the city getting as much land as possible, so do we have an idea what the city might wanna do with it?
We haven't gotten that far yet.
Okay.
Okay. Anybody else have any questions?
This just happened on Friday.
No, pretty quick.
Yeah.
If we don't know what we're doing with it, why are we buying it?
Because it's 75 acres of undeveloped land, that's why.
That's right, just because it's available.
Correct.
You know, we're not gonna develop it.
The grant is geared toward wetland protection, so it's a really good grant. You know, even though there was a subdivision approved, the back part of that and
Right,
the
the
land
downhill
around it
portion
is-
out back, right, yeah, exactly.
There's a potential vernal pool on site.
That too,
It's up
yeah.
against
Yep.
Massapog, which is a great pond.
Exactly.
What would Nick's involvement be, if any, in this application process?
Nick,
Does he get involved?
he helped me all day today.
Uh-huh.
Okay.
That's where he was.
Help draft, you know, the narrative.
The narrative and
things
things
like that.
like that.
Very cool.
Excellent, all right, then, so then, thank you, Wendy, I appreciate your input.
Yep.
Then I want to entertain a motion, make a motion to lend our support to apply for this land grant as described by the agent previously.
So conceptual support, correct?
Yeah, conceptual support, right.
I would be happy to make that motion.
Thank you, Michael, happy to accept your motion. Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Thank you, Robert.
Good, Bob.
Thanks, Jim.
All right, I'll take the rest of the commission's vote by roll call. Jim Chambers.
Aye.
Stephanie Quinlan.
Aye.
Richard Gullick.
Aye.
And Chuck Randall.
Aye, my only condition is that the city does take, it can be the one to take down that sign.
Yeah, right.
I live on Pierce Street, so I drive by it all the time.
Hold that.
All right, awesome. Yeah.
I was joking, by the way, I did.
All
All
right,
right, so, all right, excellent, so that, I think that comes to the end of our agenda.
Did I miss the ordinance planning?
Oh, yeah, if you have something.
Oh,
No, well,
no, basically, what we
say.
stated was that we haven't made any progress yet. It seems like the toughest part is actually getting the information we need to then start talking about what ordinance, or what we'd like to see in an ordinance, so we're having a tough time just getting to that point first.
And I suggested that we get through the Harwood Terrace, and that'll give us a lot of information on it.
Okay.
Yeah.
So did you have anything you want to add to that?
The only thing that I wanted to say about it is that it seems to be really hard to discuss it at the end of the meeting.
Yes.
Yeah.
And if there was more discussion that needed to happen, like more work, because this is a significant project that we're taking on.
Yeah.
If we were even allowed to have a meeting outside of this meeting to get together to just talk about that, I would show up to that meeting.
Okay.
I would rather do that than
That's a
talk
good
about
idea.
it at 8:20.
I like that.
Any
Yeah,
Tuesday.
so we might start a conversation on 8:20 and not finish until 9:45.
Yeah.
So, no, that's a good idea, I like that.
I'm happy to talk about
So-
it at like 6 o'clock on an off Tuesday.
We
Yeah.
asked Nick to take it off the agenda, so it just pop up each time, until the small group that was gonna get us a foot started, had gotten that foot started.
Okay.
Sure.
Cool.
Yeah. So, good, I appreciate that,
I will-
and I think it's a good idea.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And I know that's a possibility to hold extra meetings, like extra open meetings outside of it, but I'll talk to the clerk about the legality of like holding a meeting that's not open. Like if we're not officially deciding on anything, I think that should be fine.
Yeah.
Yeah, once we get past I'm guessing that once we get past the point of actually developing something, before anything gets enacted, obviously that would then
Then it would
be
have to be
open
open.
meeting
Yes.
area, yeah.
But in the earlier stages, we might be able to get away with
Like
not doing that.
data gathering, that,
Yeah.
I would prefer to just call the open meeting. If we're all scheduling it, just do it 10 days in advance or whatever's required.
We
Make
could
it
do that
open,
too.
anybody wants to come in, fine.
Could do that.
We can, I don't mind public input on this.
Okay.
If somebody's interested in that subject.
Yeah, once we have that foothold or that start, if we want to,
Okay.
take that step to have a separate time to discuss it,
I
where we
understand,
can
yeah.
be like a little bit
Yeah.
more fresh-faced and energetic.
Sounds good. Rather than, oh my God, get me out of here.
Right, I don't have a lot to give at 8:20, I'm not gonna lie.
Yeah, no, that's fair. Yeah, after starting your day at 6 or 7 in the morning.
October to get started.
Yeah, oh, it's gonna be a little while. I'm not showing up in November, I'll tell you that much.
All right, moving on then. Next meeting will be July 25th, 2023. The filing deadline was this previous Friday, July 7th at noon. The meeting after that will be August 8th, and the filing deadline is Friday, July 21st, also at noon. With that, I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
I'll make that motion.
Thank you. Second.
Okay,
Thank you, Jim.
Jim, we take the rest of the commission's vote by roll call. Bob Seacard.
Aye.
Mike Seeke.
Aye.
Richard Gulick.
Aye.
And Chuck Raymond.
Aye.
All right.